Red Sox come into town. Giants took a 3-0 lead. And Wilmer and Chapman having words. And now everybody's coming out of the dugout.
Hello there. Welcome into the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. Dwayne Kuiper there on the call for NBC Sports Bay Area as the Giants fall to the Boston Red Sox 7-5 on Friday night at Oracle Park. For the first time in our show's history, the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap is on air after a Giants loss. I would have liked to have gone undefeated all year on that, but had to figure that would not happen. But again, Giants take the loss, and Wilmer Flores, Matt Chapman, they exchanged some pleasantries, let's call it that, after the game there. But yeah, a lot to get into from that game. Some interesting situational hitting there. Hayden Birdsong, he gets roughed up a bit last night. He goes 4 1/3, gives up 5 runs. 4 of them were earned, including a big home run to Red Sox second baseman David Hamilton. So a lot to get into today. 888-957-9570 is the number. But more important than anything, though, it's who's joining me on the show today. And that's one Dan Devone. Dan, how are you today, my man?
Good, Sammy. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's tell you, it's been a long week for your boy. This was, when you do this job here in radio, there's times, and it's going to sound like I'm complaining. I'm not really complaining per se, but you go through times, and this is any job, where you're in a grind. You just got a lot going on. Every day is packed with something. And I'm kind of in the middle of like a 2-week grind right now. Going back to this Tuesday, we got the Rafael Devers introductory press conference that happened. Of course, he was acquired by the Giants on Sunday evening around 3:45 on Father's Day. I want to get, your reaction on where you were when you heard that news at some point, Dan. So I did the presser on Tuesday. Wednesday was a normal day. Went to the game on Thursday. Was at the game last night. All this while doing it on a morning producer's sleep schedule, which is absolutely horrendous. I am running on maybe 5.5 hours of sleep a night right now over the last week, but couldn't be happier to be here, Dan. So very excited for that. You being here is the energy shot that I need.
Well, let me just tell you that I happened to see you at work, and I can verify what it is that you're saying because I was on a flight and I was watching a YouTube, sort of a replay of the introductory conference that you're referring to. And who did I see front and center? You might have been in the second row. I know Barry Bonds and Larry Baer were to your left.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Sam Loveman, the unmistakable mug that is Sammy.
It does
right
pop
there.
out. Yep. And Steven Risotto was also there. He was sitting right next to me. And for all those who saw all the social media coverage of the Rafael Devers press conference on Tuesday, that was all one Steven Risotto. So good job to you, Rizzo. Love that. And then, of course, our guy, Zach Green, he is on the board today, pressing all the buttons. Zach, you were at the game last night, man. Crack the mic, get in here. How was the game for you last night? Where were you sitting? What did you eat? How was it for you?
It was very, very cold, I'll say that. I mean, the cost, we'll get into it.
We will get into it. Dude. Christian Koss, man. A lot of guys on that team last night.
Can that dude field a fundamental ground ball?
There's a lot of things we need to know if that dude can do right now.
I mean, a ball hit right at him. Does he have the ability just to get in the squat, flip the glove, and make the throw to first?
I don't know if anyone who plays second base for the Giants right now is capable of doing that. We've seen Tyler Fitzgerald do that. Brett Wisely was just called up to fill in for Justin Verlander, who's on the paternity list. And shout out to Justin Verlander and his lovely wife, Kate Upton, bringing in baby number 2.
A boy?
So congratulations. Was it a boy? I didn't see the gen. Okay, boy. Well, good for them. Another potential Hall of Fame pitcher possibly in the works if the gene pool is to work in such a way. So, yeah, we are coming to you live from the Laughing Monk Studios. Laughing Monk, righteously brewed here in San Francisco. We're on YouTube as well, so shout out to those who are watching on YouTube. That is brought to you by First NorCal Credit Union. For a low-rate auto loan, apply online or just ask for First NorCal financing at the dealer. 888-957-9570 is the number. Giants fans, how are we feeling about that loss to the Red Sox last night? Again, Giants fall the Red Sox 7-5. Want to hear your thoughts on the game. Want to hear your thoughts on the at-bats we saw last night. Some of them were good. Most of them were not. And just right now, when you look at this Giants team and the way they're hitting, especially with runners in scoring position, It is absolutely abysmal right now, Dan, the situational hitting. You want to hear a fun stat? In the month of June, it's June 21st. By the way, happy first day of summer.
You as well.
To everybody.
Longest day of the year.
Longest, you beat me by a half second on that one. And so, which is a perfect day to spend all day talking about Giants baseball. Let's use the longest day of the year to talk about Giants baseball and hitting with runners in scoring position. In the month of June, in the 20 days that have transpired in the 6th month of the 2025 calendar year, Giants are 29 for 144 with runners in scoring position. That is a 201 batting average. Over the last 7 days, over the last 7 times the sun went up and went down and the Giants played baseball on those days, they are 7 for their last 50 with runners in scoring position. And you saw it last night. More issues with runners in scoring position. Let's see if I can find the numbers here. It is very unacceptable. Nick in San Jose would love to hear from him on this matter, but he usually only calls in about the Warriors. 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position last night. Giants left 8 runners on base during the game, and the only reason the number is that low is because Christian Koss wiped out half of them with the double plays that he hit into last night.
Yeah, if you look at the box score, if you didn't happen to watch the game, right, and you see that the Giants lose 7-5, for Giant fans, obviously, you never want to see your team lose, but you're thinking, 5 runs for a team that went like nearly a month that didn't score more than 4 runs. You're like, well, maybe the offense is picking up a little bit because you did score 5 runs, so I'll take, the silver lining in the loss. Well, think again, because if you happen to watch that game, Sammy, that only one of those runs came via a ball hit outside of the infield, and that was Wilmer Flores' base hit to center field. Everything else, as you mentioned, 2 bases loaded, nobody out, Christian Koss, double plays that resulted in fielded choice runs.
Yeah, 40% of your runs came via the double play there.
And then the Wilmer Flores sort of dying quail that didn't get out of the infield, which was botched by the second baseman, plated a run. And then Yastrzemski had basically a comebacker that was not fielded cleanly by the pitcher, and you get your other run that way. And that's it.
It was like 5 runs that in no way, shape, or form looked like a typical 5-run outburst you see from a team. And as you said, Dan, exactly, 1 ball gets out of the infield to score a run. When we say we like small ball in the ground attack, that is not really what we mean by that. There is some good news, though. Good news is, despite it all, you're still in second place in the NL West. You're still in playoff position. You're still 8 games above 500. And there's still so many ways for this team to get better and get back to being the team we know they can be. Rafael Devers has really yet to catch fire. I do think that the emotions of the trade, how things have gone this season, how things have gone this week, the Red Sox being in town, that's a lot for a ball player to go through over a week. My guess is once we get through this kind of initial arrival phase of Devers, once he settles in, we'll start to see him be the hitter that we know he is. Also, though, by the way, Devers did go 0 for 5 last night, and for a guy who, when he was asked on Tuesday, how do you feel about hitting at Oracle Park, he was like, it's baseball, man. I can hit anywhere. And Devers, I believe, is the 4th inning. He got his, or the 5th inning. He got his first oracling, I believe, or the 3rd inning. Hits a deep ball out to center field and dies right in front of that 399 mark. It was 385 is how far he hit it. Would have been a home run in 5 different ballparks. But nope, not the one he was in last night. So, Rafi Devers, welcome to Oracle Park.
Yeah, and I don't think it would have been out in Fenway, I want to say, but he's got to hit, Sam. He has got to hit, bottom line. We'll give him the grace period, but we cannot afford another Willie Adames scenario here. So he has got to start squaring up, and yes, it's not easy to be traded midseason, especially when I think it came out of left field. And for him to get acclimated to his new team, his new ballpark, you give him a couple of days, but you don't really have a lot of time. You need for him to start hitting, and hopefully it can be contagious and it trickles down. I know that the silver lining is that the Giants are still in playoff position and still in second place, but if you think about it, a week ago, they were only a game back, and they're now 4.5 back of the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are beginning to make their move. Watch out. Here comes L.A. L.A.'s now won 6 of 7. They're getting Shohei back. They're getting some players back. So This could be that point, and you knew it was going to happen at some juncture of the season where the Dodgers make a pivot and then just run away and hide from people, and this could be it. So any chance of walking them down, which was certainly in the conversation a week ago, could be dashed. And now you're looking at catching Milwaukee and being in that scrum with the Cardinals and all these other teams, the Philadelphia Phillies, in terms of trying to procure that wild card spot. But you need Devers to start hitting the baseball.
You need Devers to start hitting. They need Adames to eventually show up at some point. They need to get Matt Chapman back in the lineup, too. Boy, are they missing him. By the way, it was Camden Yards, Wrigley, Dodger Stadium, Miller Park, I guess it's called American Family Field now or something like that, and Citi Field. According to Baseball Savant, Rafael Devers would have had a home run in those 5 ballparks, and unfortunately he was at Oracle Park where that ball was not gone. So jumping into the game last night, and the big issue again, it's the continued situational hitting issues, and Bob Melvin after the game was, you could see the frustration on his face, and he's pretty good at keeping a calm face, but that frustration's there. And he was asked, to characterize that game, and here's what he said. He talked about that was a game that they feel like they probably should have won.
Well, it's a game we feel pretty good about winning. I think we did a better job against the starter tonight. There are a couple of key at-bats where we didn't get it done, maybe, with 5 walks. A little bit more patient at times, maybe. But look, Christian doesn't get to play a whole lot. You're trying to get a good ball to hit. And, unfortunately, we had a couple double play balls there. But, and then we gave up some runs that uncharacteristically that we don't usually give up. Come back and, feel like we're in a pretty good position, and then just couldn't hold them down, really from the 3rd inning on.
So I'm going to start by saying I kind of do like how Bob defends his players. How, publicly he'll stick up for his guys. He's defending Christian there. Oh, he hasn't played a lot. He's getting a little too aggressive. I do appreciate that, even if Bob is going to defend guys to a level that makes us on the outside kind of roll our eyes a little bit. I'm cool with that. My guess, it's a pretty strong guess, is that behind the scenes, Bob is not as, come here, let me give you a hug about it. I'm sure there's a little bit more of a stronger admonishment behind the scenes. So I do appreciate that. But, yeah, bring up Christian Koss in those 2 at-bats he had. In the first 2 at-bats, bases loaded, no outs. He saw 4 total pitches and grounds into double plays. It was 6-4-3 and then a 5-4-3. And I was really kind of hoping he would get a 3-4-3 double play at some point in the game as well. But in that situation, when you got a pitcher who walked 3 guys in a row, like Dobbins did the first time Costa came to the plate, you got to take some pitches there, dude. Make this pitcher work. He's wild. He's not hitting the strike zone. And the first time he puts it in the strike zone, you're swinging and grounding in double play. Like, that's just bad at-bats right there.
I don't know that his first at bat in which he hit in was a 4-6-3 double play was necessarily a bad at bat, because you knew Dobbins had to groove something, and he was sitting dead red on a fastball, and he got one. It was a good pitch, and I thought he squared it up. That was unfortunate because it was hit hard. I think it was a 1-hop shot, which is why they had no chance of. That double play was tailor-made because there's no way of beating that out because he squared it up and hit it so hard. But I had no issue with his first at bat because I think that, you got to hit the ball at some point, and he got a pitch he thought he could drive, and he did lay wood. But, the second at bat with the bases loaded, you got to do better than that. And it's just, you get, I don't know that Christian Koss is a guy that should be playing second base at the major league level, quite frankly, not to demonize the guy and go after him, but that was not only poor in terms of his offense, but defensively. Both of his opportunities, I think he had 3 opportunities, and 2 of them were just really just sort of routine, and neither one of them did he look very comfortable.
No, the
and there's
defense,
something I don't know this guy's background well enough, but now that becomes an area of need. It's almost like a virus, Sam, where it started at first base with Lamont Wade, who couldn't hit, then Pat Bailey, then Yastrzemski all of a sudden can't hit. We've seen Adames, who's been struggling all year long. Now the virus has infiltrated its way out to center field. I don't know what the hell's going on with Jung-Hoo Lee, but that's now a concern.
He's hitting 185 this month, going into last night, Jung-Hoo Lee, and that was before he put up last night's 0 for 4. So he's another guy. It's the pressing. Guys are pressing far too much. I mean, you talk about those cost at-bats. The first one there, again, Dan, probably getting a little too aggressive, trying to jump, make something happen. But this is a fastball at the bottom of the zone that he's going for. You look at where the pitch is placed, and I'm looking right now on the game day, there's a chance that the umpire could have called the ball on that one. Again, that's maybe a reach there, but you're going outside the zone, low and down to try and get that pitch. You end up, granted, he did square it up, obviously, but it was 107 off the bat, so he hit it hard, and credit to Hamilton at second. Made an absolutely great play to start that double play. Still, I don't know if I like where that ball is at. The second one, again, slider in the exact same spot. And it comes down to, for me, again, when a pitcher's in that situation, when he's wild, when he's struggling to hit the strike zone, force him to actually groove one in right down the middle, because that's what he has to do. Neither of those pitches that Koss swung at were right down the middle. And, you look at the guys who are pressing right now, Adames, Devers, Jung-Hoo Lee, Tyler Fitzgerald, I think, has it. Christian Koss last night. I would say Patrick Bailey is pressing, but I think he might just be completely lost at the plate. He's too lost right now to be pressing. He's still struggling to get over that Mendoza line. That's a lot of guys in your lineup right now that are just trying way too hard to make something happen. And I asked Bob Melvin about this after the game. Here's what he had to say about that.
There's some guys that probably haven't been as productive as they would think, or we would like at this point in time. I look, some of these guys are grinding pretty hard through it. And again, in tonight's game, we were patient enough to get ourselves in some pretty good situations. We just didn't come through. Overall, yeah, I think there's probably some more damage to be done for our offense. It felt like tonight might have been one of those nights to break out. We just couldn't get the big hit.
Again, just seems like we're saying that all the time. Just can't get that big hit. Wilmer Flores got that big hit on Thursday, and he is routinely one of the Giants' most dependable hitters this year. Him and Elliot Ramos, Matt Chapman, Mike Yastrzemski could be very streaky. I know he had that very not good at bat in the 8th inning with the bases loaded. He probably could have walked 2 or 3 times if he had been a little bit more selective there. But what those guys have in common, Dan, is they are really, really good at working long at bats. Wilmer Flores, Elliot Ramos especially, the more pitches they see per at bat, the better you start to feel about what they're going to do at that at bat, because they're letting the game come to them. They're making the pitcher execute and throw the better pitch. And at some point, when you start seeing so many pitches at the plate, the pitcher's got to make a mistake, and that's what you take advantage of it. And that's what Flores and Ramos and Chapman have been so great at, and what a lot of other guys in this lineup just have not been able to do.
Just getting back to Jung-Hoo Lee for a moment, because now the virus is, as I mentioned, moved out to center field. That really becomes concerning, because when you see Jung-Hoo Lee, to me, I covered Ichiro when he came into the league, and thoughts of Ichiro being revisited have to dance in your mind when you look at the stance and you think, oh, this is a guy who's going to use his speed and he's going to use the whole field, right? You think he can go oppo and he's go gap to gap. This guy is a dead pull hitter. He's Max Muncy. He's a guy you could, thank God they don't have the shift anymore. I don't think he'd get another hit. And I'm just curious, Sam, as to whether or not there's a book out of him, right? Because this is his second time through. And so we know baseball is sort of the game within the game, that once there's a book on you, okay, how do you counter that? And maybe that's what he's going through. But he is clearly not the same hitter. He was flirting around 300 for a good portion of the early part of the season. Mm-hmm. And now everything is a ground ball to second base or the first baseman, or it's a lazy fly ball to right field. And that to me now becomes the new concern. I mean, last week Fitzgerald, the week before Yastrzemski, and now it's Jung-Hoo Lee.
One of these weeks we're going to have where no one is a concern in the Giants lineup, I said to myself, lying to everybody. But no, Dan, you're right. I do think there is a book on him, and it's as you said, in baseball, when you burst on a scene like Jung-Hoo Lee did at the start of this year, and let's remember, he had 145 at-bats last year. His season ended on Mother's Day. This is basically his rookie year 2.0. And what we saw last year, he might have been heating up with the bat when he went down, but we'll never really know. This year got off to a great start, and he looked like a lock to make the All-Star team. And what happens is teams adjust to you. So this is the test that Jung-Hoo Lee has to pass right now. The league is adjusted to you. How are you now going to adjust to the adjustment? And this is a game that baseball players play their entire careers. The other teams, they're paid to play baseball too. Hunter Dobbins, who was pitching for the Red Sox yesterday, he's trying to get guys out. He's trying to put, money in his bank account, food on his table. These guys are good as well. And their job is to find ways to make opposing baseball players look like they're bad at baseball. And what you're seeing pitchers start to do with Jung-Hoo Lee is they're starting to go away on him last night. He saw a ton of curveballs last night, Dan. And a lot of those, especially the curveballs away, he's lunging to try and go get them. And what happens is you get these weak swings where he's getting these, weak flares out. It's why his exit velocity, which, again, not an end-all, be-all stat, is so low. He's lunging. He's reaching for these balls. And I asked Bob Melvin about this the other day, what are you seeing from Jung-Hoo at the plate? And he's just like, yeah, he's pressing. He's rushing too much at the plate. He's trying. There's that word again, pressing, because he was down. He was hitting 7th on Thursday. It's the lowest he's hit all year long because Bob is trying to take the pressure off of him in the lineup. This is a guy who's supposed to be your 3-hitter, your leadoff hitter, and he is looking like one of the most unreliable hitters in the lineup right now.
Yeah, and I think that getting back to your point about there's now a book out on him, and it's not just Dobbins, who obviously goes over these sort of things with the pitching coach, and he knows exactly how he wants to approach every hitter, but it's your entire defense. And as I mentioned, what I find really peculiar is everybody's swung around playing this guy as if he's a Deadpool, Max Muncy, Brandon Belt, that I can only go to one side of the field. And when I think about Jung-Hoo Lee, I think about a guy who should be using the entire yard. And I don't know what it's attributed to, but everything that this guy is putting in play is all to the right side or center field. And I would love for him to be a guy, I used Ichiro as sort of a reference, but somebody that is going, to right field or going the other way or just getting on. And he's going through something. And they always talk about how baseball is contagious. It's contagious when things are going well, and it's also contagious when things are not.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been sort of the excuse. We're sort of on, it's getting a little old now.
It's been like a month and a half that this has been going around, these offensive issues. First there was obviously the 16-game stretch of 4 runs or less, which they went 8-8 over. And they had that big game against the Padres. They win 7 in a row, all 1-run games. There was maybe some red flags there. You can't 7 straight 1-run wins. That is so hard to do. Like, there's obviously some matter of luck there in that situation. But no, for the most part, Dan, for the last month and a half, the Giants offense has been a grind to watch, which there's a part of me that's just like, I think we expected that going into the season, to say pitching and defense team. The defense has been lately, and right now the pitching, I think there's some concerns. I mean, Justin Verlander, how much can you rely on him the rest of the year? Hayden Birdsong, again, he got roughed up last night. We'll talk about that a little bit on the other side as well, because we are getting up against it here. But Hayden Birdsong, Landon Roop, they haven't pitched a ton of innings in their career, so at some point, they're going to hit the wall. Landon Roop, he will be on the hill today for the Giants, hoping to play the role of stopper and stop this 1-game skid that they are on. So that's going to be an issue, and the defense is an issue. Dan, and then if the offense doesn't pick it up, there could be some serious concerns that develop for this team going into the summer after this Rafael Devers trade. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We are up against it. And really quick, though, you look at Jung-Hoo Lee's hitting, though. This is something I want to get before we get to the break. It's a good point, Dan. He is going to right field a lot. At the beginning of the year, he was using the whole field.
Yeah.
He was going the opposite way. So we know he has that ability to use all sides of the field. And at the beginning of the year, I thought he had one of the best approaches at the plate to start the season. So they need to figure out a way to get that back. Pat Burrell, that's going to be a lot of onus on you. And Pat Burrell, he's going to be going through it today with the Giants fans. There was a lot of Pat Burrell frustration on the Twitter sphere last night, however much weight you want to put into that. My guy Alex in Atlanta, I think he sent out at least 464 anti-Pat Burrell tweets in the last 17 hours. So he is absolutely fired up the night of numbers. I wonder if we'll hear from him today, Alex in Atlanta. I did see him in the YouTube chat. We got a fun rest of the show going, though, Dan. Grant Brisbee of The Athletic covers the Giants there, the longtime Giants beat writer. He will be joining us at 11 o'clock, and we're going to do the Bryce check this week. I forgot to do it last week, but I'm going to make sure Risotto does not let me forget this week. So a lot of great stuff. And, of course, your calls. Father Time, he is undefeated in Napa right now. We're going to go to you on the other side of this break. And that is presented by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
And again, they get the double play. And again, the Giants score a run.
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. The best Giants talk in the Bay on 95.7 The Game. Wow!
We are pretty good here at Giants Talk here on the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. Sam Lubman here with Dan Devone, Steven Risotto, Zach Green. They are behind the glass. Again, we are coming to you live from the Laughing Monk Studios after the Giants fall to the Red Sox 7-5. Hayden Birdsong taking the loss last night. Actually, no, Sean Jelly took the loss last night. Giants had a 3-0 lead, ended up coughing it up. Jelly takes the loss there in the game. So, Giants, this is supposed to be a fun week with Rafael Devers coming to this team and the big trade that the Giants made. And this fan base was fired up. You know, it happened 20 minutes before first pitch, before the Giants took on the Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball. And Dan, I was over at my dad's house because it was Father's Day, so I went over there for dinner, and we're waiting for this game to start, and I go to show him something on my phone, and I open it, and that's when the MLB trade rumors notification popped up, Giants acquire Rafael Devers, and it's like, well, that's clearly a glitch. What's going on here? Sure enough, though, that trade was real, and I can't recall a Giants-Dodger game in my life that I had less interest in. My dad and I were just on the couch spending the next 3 hours going down Rafael Devers rabbit holes, just learning everything we could about what this guy's going to bring to the Giants, and didn't even care that the Giants lost that game. Sean Jelly, of course, got rocked in that one, but he found out 20 minutes before that he was going to be making his first career. Listen, for a guy who's not a starter, who was making his first career start, that he found out 20 minutes beforehand that he was going to be making that start. Oh, and also the first guy that you're going to be facing is Shohei Ohtani, probably the best baseball player on the planet right now when he's not betting on baseball games. Yes, he was never found to have done anything. Legally, I feel like I have to say that. But yeah, you can only expect so much. And then you have the presser on Tuesday. The Giants lose that game, but you don't really care because you're just feeling good about Rafael Devers putting on that jersey for the first time. Then they lose on Wednesday. It's just like, okay, come on, guys. What are we doing here? Then they lose last night to the Red Sox, and now it's like, guys, come on, seriously. Like, the shine has worn off. Let's get down to business now and defeat the Red Sox. Dan, I'm curious, when you found out the trade, where were you when the notification came in?
I was in New York, and why that's sort of notable is because the Sox had just swept the Yankees, and the Yankees they're scuffling right now. And as you know, New York in that relationship with the Yankees, much like that of all those big teams out in the Northeast, Philly, New York, Boston, they will lean in on you and go nuts if the team is playing subpar or underwhelming baseball. And so why it was notable out in New York is that Yankee fans could not believe, much like everybody else, because Devers' last home run, his 15th home run, was, I want to say, on Sunday in that game against the Yankees. And so he is, Sam, he's been a Yankee killer. He has destroyed the Yankees. And obviously we're well aware of the rivalry that is the Yankees and the Red Sox. Now, I know a lot of people out here in San Francisco, the baseball enthusiasts, know about Rafael Devers, but Rafi Devers out on the East Coast and Boston has been one of the best hitters in baseball, and he has been a guy that has destroyed the New York Yankees when it comes to that rivalry. Devers has just absolutely owned Yankee pitching. And so the New York perspective was, are you kidding me?
They were
Red
loving
Sox
it.
Just shipped out this dude. Thank God. Get the hell out of town, Devers, and bring on Kyle Harrison and whomever. But I couldn't believe it. I think that we can get into the trade, and we'll do that a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Kyle Harrison guy. I think we talked about Kyle Harrison.
He was the first official guest on this show, pre-recorded, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that is going to be missed not only down the line, but I think in the short term, there could be some Kyle Harrison envy, which we'll get into, I'm sure, a little bit later.
Yeah, so let's go to the lines here. As I said I would. We're going to go out to Napa and chat with Father Time. He is undefeated, Dan. So, Father Time, how you doing today, my man? You're on the wrap.
Hey, good morning. Can you guys hear me all right? I'm driving a little bit up to Santa Helena for an event.
Ooh, have fun at that.
so,
What's the event?
Yeah, good time. Good times. It's a big old harvest party early, so it's some employees and then some guests doing some tasting, whatever. It's fine.
Awesome.
It's all good.
Sounds like a great Saturday, man.
There's an event every Saturday, or 5 of them. So
Such is life
I
in
don't even know
Napa.
where to start, honestly. Exactly. I don't know where to start other than the beginning. Sam Ludman, amazing question at the presser.
Oh, thank
and
you.
an amazing shutdown. Typical baseball player shutdown. God willing, if it doesn't rain, we're going to win. I'm happy to be here. The owners are great, whatever they want. So you asked a tough question and got a really lame answer. So props to you, man. Props to you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, so Giants baseball. I'm going to be maybe a little Harvey Homer and a little bit of David Downer. The Giants offense is anemic. It's pathetic. Rafael Devers is going to do something. I don't know. He's hitting 269. I really hope that it happens for them. But the Bay Area, the whole notion that we're going to the World Series, and I say we because I'm a third-generation Giants fan, the notion that there's a World Series down the line is bananas. So if Buster Posey doesn't pull some more magic out of the air and bring some other bats to the lineup, I mean, you guys have been watching it. What's the record over the last 8 games? You know, it's just a real bummer that we get fooled all the time. That's my point, is that, you know, sports is all about willful suspension of disbelief, correct? Like, it's always better tomorrow. But I got to say that this Giants thing, for the first time in a long time, just really feels like fool's gold, man. It just feels like fool's gold. And the pitching staff is great, but until they can start putting up 4 and 5 and 6 runs a game every third or fourth game, I think we're all going to be kidding ourselves. So, anyway, that's my take.
I hear you, Father Time. It's looking bleak right now. The Giants have lost 2 of their last 8 games, going back to last week, starting with the walk-off loss in Colorado to the Rockies, and that one was a very frustrating one. Again, that one ended the 7-game winning streak. And, yeah, I understand the frustration there. This lineup should be a lot better than it is right now. And I think that's going to drive the frustration of Giants fans. It's, we've seen weak hitting teams in the past, and there's a level of acceptance that Giants fans have had. Like, even during the championship years, those were very good, opportunistic teams, but even those teams would go through long droughts of awful hitting with runners in scoring position. But the pitching and the defense were so good and so dependable that you would be more patient with what those teams were doing at the plate. And also, of course, once you start winning championships, that pedigree kind of will allow a longer leash as well. This team, though, is just every position right now in the lineup, other than Elliot Ramos and Wilmer Flores, just looks like a total black hole right now.
I kind of like where Father Time was going with that. Is Buster Posey done? I mean, this team clearly needs more hitting. I felt as though that you might have some more trade pieces here. Now, I like Casey Schmidt. I'm a Casey Schmidt guy. And there were teams that were inquiring about him over the offseason. And he's somebody that I can foresee being a starting third base, and that's his natural position. He looks like a fish out of water when he's playing over at first to me. And so I could see teams wanting to plug him in over third base. The problem with Casey Schmidt, who obviously he's not replacing Chapman, but you need him now, and you need somebody who at least is going to be a bench or a utility guy should Chapman sustain another injury or you lose Willie Adames. Well, then, is it Brett Wisely that's going to be your guy? But my point being is that you might have one of your young pitchers and maybe a position player in Casey Schmidt, and maybe Buster Posey goes right back into the trade market and pulls the trigger and says, I'm not done. Let's go get, whether it's O'Hearn or you go get another bat. I kind of like what Father Time's saying. The one thing that we haven't talked about, or at least you and I haven't discussed, is that my takeaway of the trade was, it was stunning that the Red Sox gave it up. But the first thing that I thought of is like, way to go, Buster. Because what I've been telling you up to this point is that he really hasn't done anything, and he's just been sort of
Empty suit, as some might say.
Well, no, because I think empty suit is going after him. When I say he hasn't done anything, it's like, well, you won't. He's going to get his first opportunity to sort of make his mark as who he is as the president of baseball ops. Let's find out what sort of visionary he is. Is he going to be aggressive? Is he going to be like Farhan and placate both sides? What is it that he's going to do? And the fact that he rolled the dice and went out and was as aggressive as he was to pull off this trade, to me, I'm all on board with Buster Posey. And I what it is that he did up until this point, the Willie Adames, yeah, again, I think Farhan could have brought him on board, but he just hasn't had the opportunity. This is it. Your team is good. You need players and you need offense. And he went out and he got one of the best. He shocked the world, but I don't think he's done. And let's just see if he continues to build this team in Buster Posey's vision.
No, I agree with you there, and I don't think he is done. I think their second base last night showed that is a position they need to fix, because Tyler Fitzgerald either needs to come out of the funk that he's in, or I don't know how long he's going to be the guy. I think he profiles the guy who absolutely could be a guy who can handle second base, especially if he could be a dynamic hitter in that 9 spot. I think the contact is good enough that he could handle that. But, again, that's another guy. Books out on him, go low and away. He can't do anything against you. And the defense just isn't good enough at second base to justify it. Brett Wisely is not a great hitter. Christian Koss struggling. I think he's a 4A guy. Casey Schmidt can play second, but as you said, Dan, that is not his natural position. The Giants have to make moves there and fix that position in some way, shape, or form. And honestly, I think catching is another spot they need to figure out, because I know they really like Bailey's defense behind the plate. Dave Fleming's come on this station. He's talked about how what Posey wants is for Patrick Bailey to handle things defensively behind the plate. Can you handle the pitching staff? There's his ability to frame pitches and steal strikes, which hopefully that's a skill that will translate next year if ABS comes along. But when I look at the catching situation, it is another one that needs to be severely upgraded. And taking a look around the league, I look at what's going on in Atlanta right now, the Braves, and how they're scuffling and how their season's off the rails and going absolutely nowhere. They got a guy in Sean Murphy who's making $13 million a year over the next 3 years. He's, I believe, 30 years old right now. The defensive drop-off from Bailey to Murphy isn't awful. There is a drop-off, but it's a bearable one. The offensive improvement, though, is tremendous, though, and would absolutely help this team. Would that be a bold move for Buster to make? Absolutely. But what Buster did this week is he did something that Farhan Zaidi could never do, and that was make that bold trade. Farhan would have been locked up at, well, who's going to play DH and first base? Like, he was so afraid to make deals at positions they already had guys for, because he was afraid of blocking someone they already had or blocking out a guy that they had somewhere in the minors. What Buster did here is said, screw it. We're going to bring this guy in, and we'll figure out the positions later. And that's what they're doing. You know, Devers is going to be the DH. He'll play first base at some point when the Giants deem him ready, and they will go from there. That is the kind of aggression that you never saw from Farhan Zaidi. And that's why you can feel good about what Buster did this week, because, again, it just showed that this is truly a new era of Giants baseball, which is what Giants fans wanted. So going back out to the lines there's my guy, the Knight of Numbers, Alex in Atlanta. How you doing today, buddy? You're on the wrap.
Oh, I can't say I'm not frustrated, gentlemen. I mean, the June swoon has hit the Giants in full force so far. Hopefully that changes when the calendar flips to July. But I like the fact that you guys were starting to hint at with this idea that, look, we have to remember that this year was going to be a season where Buster Posey is evaluating what he has. And I think the fan base, myself included, got our expectations a little overinflated when the year started off really well. You know, the Giants, they're still 8 games over 500, which I think is a very much marked improvement from last year. And I think they're ahead of schedule on that front. But I think we may have underestimated just how bad of a situation Buster Posey inherited from the Farhan era. There were a lot of problems throughout the lineup with numerous positions that he needs to address. I like the fact that you guys are talking about second base, because right now this team to me does not have an everyday second baseman. Tyler Fitzgerald, yeah, he has really great speed. The defense isn't bad, but great speed is pretty much useless if you can't get on base. And this guy has a on-base percentage of under 300 this year. You look at Christian Koss, again, great speed, doesn't get on base, so that speed is really a moot point. There are two guys I would love to see the Giants take a swing at in regards to upgrading second base. They're both on last-place teams, so I think they're gettable. The first is Xavier Edwards. This is a guy where if you want to value speed, he's got 13 stolen bases this year. His on-base percentage is over 350, bats around 285. Granted, he's young, so I don't know if the Marlins want to give him up, but he's cheap right now. He's on a club option. I think he's making under $1 million a year at the moment, and he's on a club option next year as well. So that's something the Giants could potentially leverage to try to extend the negotiation periods if they are able to trade for him. If you're looking for more of a power bat, some more pop in the lineup potentially, I mean, the Oakland A's, and I'm going to keep calling them the Oakland A's until they actually move to Las Vegas. They've got Luis Urias, who can play multiple positions on that side of the infield, second base included. He's got an on-base percentage of 342 right now, so he is potentially gettable. I think, though, the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now, and you guys have called it, I think, a virus, a contagion, if you will, of poor hitting, poor plate decision-making. At some point, I wonder when you start looking at the coaching staff. When you're talking about, bad at bats, not extending the pitch count of the opposing pitcher, swinging at bad pitches, not being able to hit in big situations with runners in scoring position. I wonder when you start looking and questioning if it was the right move to have Pat Burrell as the hitting coach for this team. Because, look, I like Pat Burrell. I like what he did with the Giants, but this is a guy who had 300 more career strikeouts than he did hits when he was a major league player. And to me, that's not a guy you want to be your hitting coach moving forward.
I hear you. That's a lot there from the Night of Numbers. Thanks for the call, Alex. Love to get you back out here in the Bay Area once you can. A lot to digest from this call there. Yeah, the second base options. The Xavier Edwards option out of Miami, that is an interesting one, but that's one of those ones where if a guy is that young, that cheap, it's going to be...
He's not coming here.
He's not coming here. No, why would the Marlins give up a guy like that? Check back in 2-3 years from now when the Marlins are going through their, usual fire sales. That's when that might pop up. But, Dan, I got...
You gotta wait for them to win.
Exactly. Well, they gotta win. Well, they gotta get close to winning first, and then they gotta fire everybody, as is tradition with the Marlins. But I'm looking around. Yeah, Luis Urias, that could be an interesting one, though. The A's Giants trade barrier. I don't know how strong that is. But when you look around at second base options, it's looking very similar kind of to the first base options that the Giants are looking at, and just there's not a whole lot to choose from. The second basemen that are doing well enough that you would trade for, they're on teams that aren't going to want to give them up. There's a lot of young second basemen that teams aren't going to want to give up. And so that will be difficult. And Alex, he brings up a good point. It's the Pat Burrell. And Dan, I'm kind of curious how you feel about, whenever things go south offensively, it's always going right to the hitting coach. Much like football, when the offense stalls out, let's get mad at the offensive coordinator. When the defense has issues, let's all go bury Nick Sorensen. It's so easy to blame the coaches. So I got to the ballpark yesterday. I got there earlier than usual yesterday, which rarely ever happens because of my poor time management skills. I got there and I walked down to the field, and Devers, Dom Smith, Brett Wisely, and Christian Koss are taking some early batting practice. This is around 3:15. And I was walking to the clubhouse and I see them all hitting. I saw Devers was part of that group. I was like, oh, well, I need to watch this. And Pat Burrell and Will Clark are behind the cage. And what they're doing is, these guys, they get in to the batter's box and they're given 4 pitches. And Pat says, all right, here's the situation that you're in. So they're doing situational hitting drills, basically. Koss gets in and Pat says, all right, Christian, 3-2 count, down by 1, bases loaded. That's what he says to him. Base is loaded. It's a little bit of foreshadowing there. And I can't exactly remember what he did. He made some solid contact, but he didn't get any hits as whatever Pat was judging him to be in this drill.
Play.
Yeah, exactly. But this kind of goes into then what we see later on. I'm thinking about the situation that Pat created for Christian, which was a 3-2 count, which to me tells you, you got to get to that count first. So when you're 1-0 on a pitcher who's been very wild, walking the 3 guys ahead of you, walking Patrick Bailey ahead of you the second time, you got to be working the count to get it deeper and deeper, and Koss wasn't doing that. I have a hard time blaming the coaching for that. That, to me, is like the hitters need to respond. Like, the hitters need to step up and come through. Yes, coaches are a part of it. To me, though, when I look at the issues that this team is having on the field, I put more of it on the players just needing to execute than I do on what the coaches are telling them to do.
Yeah, it's an easy target. I don't go there when it comes to hitting coaches. That's sort of fan 101. Who do we blame? Well, we can't hit. It's the fault of Pat the Bat Burrell, who, by the way, is a great dude. I don't know if you've ever met him. He's a good guy. I golfed with him a lot.
Okay. That's a cooler story than mine.
But just like when the Warriors, well, it is sort of analogous to the Warriors. When they're not going well, how many calls do we take, get rid of Steve Kerr? It's over for Steve Kerr. Listen, in today's baseball in 2025, these hitters have so many tools that are available to them. All the video that these guys watch, it is broken down, and they don't necessarily rely on hitting coaches. They have consultants. They'll do it themselves. They
swing
know
coaches.
exactly what's going on, and it's not all about a hitting coach that's determining whether or not a player is whether Willie Adames is hitting well or not. It's just not that simplistic. Just going back in the day, I mean, Hensley Mullins was good, but is that the reason why the Giants won, 3 World Series?
And those offenses were good, but they weren't world beaters.
No, and it's the reason why you had torture. All torture means is that you have no offense and it's good pitching and good defense. That's why games are close.
Exactly.
That's basically the definition of torture back in the day. So, I get it, fans, and I'm not going to begrudge anybody that wants.
No, it's totally understandable because those are the visible guys that you see there. So no, it's totally understandable why you go there, and who knows? It could be that it's very possible that sometimes the way that coaches do coach does not resonate with players. But at the same time, you made a good point, Tanyo. Hitters, they know who they are. They have their resources. They have the people they're talking to. Willie Adames, he spent the last few years in Milwaukee with coaches telling him to hit a certain way. Now he's here, and there's a part of him that believes the way I hit has worked for me, but you want me to hit another certain way, so there's going to be some pushback there. And, I've heard coaches, on the Giants talk about there's some frustration how they want Adames to lower his swing a little bit, to lower that launch angle and hit the gaps a little bit more. But Willie, he sees himself as a bit of a power hitter. So there's some push-pull there in terms of, guys know what numbers they want to get versus the approach that the coaches want them to take to get those numbers. There's a back and forth there, and getting there is not easy. Really quick before this break, Theo in the East Bay. What do you got on Hayden Birdsong? Theo, you're on the wrap.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course.
Great show. Tune in every week. Yeah, man, if it's not one thing with this team, it's the other. I mean, if the pitching's there, the hitting isn't there. If the hitting's there, and like last night, the pitching wasn't there. So, yeah, this season is definitely turning out to be a fun one, and I'm loving the ride so far. But, yeah, with Birdsong, I wanted to ask you guys, is it a stamina thing with him not being able to keep control of the ball after the third inning because he came from the bullpen this year? Or is it a confidence thing? Because it seems like after the third inning, he kind of just loses control and leaves them up. And he got carved yesterday by the Boston Red Sox. That's all I got, boys. Cheers.
Thank you, Theo. I'll say this. In our text thread last night, actually, Joe Shasky had a great thought that I actually kind of agree with. You got to think that the Red Sox, they've been looking at a lot of the Giants' young pitching for the last couple weeks as part of this Devers trade. So they probably got a lot of information on Birdsong. It seemed like they were kind of they were pretty locked in there in terms of knowing what was kind of coming with him. He's also struggled against left-handed hitters this year, Dan. Lefties were hitting 279 off of him going into last night's game. They went 5 for 13 with a Roman Anthony walk last night. So I think there's a little bit of that there. Fatigue,
I think anybody could have hit him last night. He got everything up, and he was behind consistently.
Exactly, and you're not going to win when you're in those situations. So We are up against it, though, with this break coming up. And I want to change the subject here a little bit because, Dan, the big story this week, Rafael Devers is a San Francisco Giant. He's going to be a San Francisco Giant for the next 8.5 years. That is such a long time, Dan. Steve Risotto will finally be old enough to drink a beer by the time his contract is over.
It's not a beer, it's a strawberry margarita.
Get it right.
That is, there we go, the strawberry margarita. So Devers going to be here for a while, but Jeff Passan wrote something for ESPN yesterday that if you are a person of high importance in the Boston Red Sox, dropped a lot of egg on your face in that article. So I want to get into that and just, as the face, do you expect Rafi Devers to be the face/leader of the San Francisco Giants for the next 8.5 years? 888-957-9570 is the number. Would love to hear from Giants fans' thoughts on that. And that is brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
No, it's awkward. This happened 5 days ago. And the guy, what he did since 2017 when he got called up all the way to the last game against New York, he produced, and he's you look at the list of, homers in the franchise, 500 extra base hits, the World Series ring. There's a lot of stuff that Rafi did for us that we're going to miss, and we're very proud of him. So to face him here, it's going to be different. From my end, it's a night game, it's a day game, and we get out, and he's going to keep doing his thing over here. This is a tough division with a lot of ex-teammates, right? So somebody has to win. But from my end, I appreciate everything he did for us, everything he did for me. And but like I always said, this is a weekend, we have to get him out. We're prepared for that, and he's prepared for that, obviously, to do the opposite.
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap on 95.7 The Game.
That was Alex Cora pregame yesterday in the Red Sox dugout. He had a very big media contingent around him. Obviously, the Red Sox media contingent is pretty sizable, but the Giants media contingent was in there as well, as obviously we had some questions about Rafael Devers that we wanted to ask him. And, Dan, the struggles of the offense this week are obviously the big story, but the real big thing that happened this week was the trade of Rafael Devers and his debut with the Giants. And again, he's one of those guys, the swings that he's taken. I asked Bob about that before the game. What your thoughts on how he's swinging the bat? And he was just like, really aggressive swings. And you see it when he swings the ball, when he swings the bat, he looks like he's trying to hit a 5-run home run with every, he wants to get a ball wet so bad right now. He is dying to hit one out to the Cove, and probably McCovey Cove Dave will come up with it and come up with some nonsense reason as to why Devers doesn't deserve to get the ball back. But that has been the big story this weekend. Everyone has had an opinion about Rafael Devers and what he was like as a teammate. We had Jonathan Papelbon on with Willard Dibs earlier this week. We'll play that sound in a little bit. I don't know if you had a chance to hear what Jonathan Papelbon had to say on these airwaves, Dan, but he had some scathing things to say.
He's not a Devers guy.
He is not. No, he had some scathing things to say about Rafael Devers. We had Will Fleming, broadcaster for the Red Sox and Dave's brother. He came on the Morning Roast on Thursday. His comments about Rafael Devers were not all that great. A lot of the comments coming out of Boston are not all that great. But then you ask Alex Cora what he was like as a teammate, and this is what Cora had to say. When I asked him this, actually, what he was like as a teammate. Here's what he had to say.
Rafi was always ready to play at 7 o'clock. He was always ready. He was ready to hit, ready to play defense whenever he played defense, and I appreciate that.
So, again, that's a manager caping up for his player. Cora, very supportive of Devers throughout his entire tenure. I mean, again, Cora was here for his entire career, going back to that 2018 World Series team that Devers was on. And I also had a chance pregame to get into the Red Sox clubhouse because there's, availability in the clubhouse for both teams. And I'm in the clubhouse. I was looking for one of the veteran players to talk to because they had, Roman Anthony was in there and a couple other their young kids were in there. And, I thought, I don't know how much they're going to want to talk about this. And then Trevor Story came in. And it's like, oh, Story, he's been, around for a while. He's been playing with Devers for a while. He's seen some things as a longtime veteran in this league. Hey, Trevor Story, what was Rafael Devers like as a teammate?
Yeah, man, I enjoyed playing with him. He's a great guy. I love the kid. He's, he was good to, I think, a lot of people in here. He was, helped a lot of people, a lot of the young guys. I know he was big with the Latin kids too. He definitely helped in his way, and I think, he did a lot of good stuff for the Boston Red Sox.
So a lot of positive things being said about there. So there's this war of words being waged about who Rafael Devers is as a person. I asked him to clear up any of the misconceptions that were being said about him, and his answer, like, that's in the past. I'm here to play baseball, which a part of me is like, you know what? Like, I know Father Time, he kind of said that, he gave me the old runaround on that one. I was okay with that. I kind of wanted him to do that because that would have told me that he's just focused on moving forward. And by the way, Rafi Devers, very well coached in his media answers. And, Buster even said, I'm liking his answers because it's all that nonsense, all that drama in Boston. That's 3,000 miles away. That's in the past. This is San Francisco now. This is a new era. So, which brings me to this Jeff Passan article that came out yesterday on ESPN.com. Definitely check it out if you get the chance to go on it and see it. And I don't know if you had a chance to read it, Dan, but with all this being said about Devers, he wrote a scathing piece about how dysfunctional the Boston Red Sox are right now, and paints a picture of a team that, yeah, if I'm Devers, I'd want to get out of there too. So I don't know what we'll dive into this article a little bit more in just a moment, but I'm just curious, Dan, your overall thoughts on just how Devers has been talked about this week in terms of what he's like as a teammate.
Well, just you texted me last night, and I hadn't read the article until you shot me that text and said, check it out. And yeah, anybody who hasn't seen it, I suggest it's a good read because, first of all, Passan's good at what it is that he does. And it is, you're right, this is systematic, right? This is something that's institutional when it comes to the Red Sox, according to Passan. Like, this goes even beyond Mookie Betts. Like, this is something that they get wrong just about every single year.
There's a pattern.
And not only that, but according to Passan, that there is, we talked about a virus with the Giants unable to hit. There apparently is a virus out there in Boston in cultivating the wrong culture when it comes to baseball and the Boston Red Sox. But getting back to Devers, listen, I think it's a win-win for both sides. Now that I sort of, when you look about it in retrospect, I think that the players are sort of like, yeah, we're okay with him going. And I think the Giants needed to do what it is that they did. And maybe there's some immaturity. Maybe there's going to be some growing pains. You got to keep in mind he's still in his late 20s, and this isn't the finished product. And maybe there is some attitude adjustments that have to take place. But I would say this, Sam, is that if he was a company man, and if he was, quote unquote, getting along out there with Boston and the powers that be, and if he was a guy that picked up a first baseman's glove and was playing that position for the Red Sox, as opposed to refusing to fill in for Casas, he wouldn't be a San Francisco Giant. So I think that's the way you have to look at this, to me at least.
Yeah.
With all the drama is the reason why he's here.
Mm-hmm.
And had he been a good guy and got along, then he's not getting traded.
See, I look at it a little bit differently. And in this article here that Passan wrote, how the Red Sox, Rafael Devers breakup got so messy, how they botched this whole thing. You talk about a guy who, again, it says here in the story, Devers, according to a person familiar with his thinking, felt lied to and betrayed by the Red Sox. Alex Cora, long one of Devers' chief supporters and advocates, supported his expulsion there. Craig Breslow, the Red Sox chief baseball officer who Devers publicly badmouthed amid the hostility, played the hatchet man. It's a mess all the way through and through. But where it starts to, it goes back. Basically, when you give a guy a $300 million deal, well, first off, the why matters. And this story talks about how the Red Sox did that to kind of placate fans who were upset about the trade of Mookie Betts, who were upset about not retaining Xander Bogaerts and basically letting that entire championship team in 2018 just go by the wayside. So there's some consternation about why they gave him that kind of deal. But when you give a guy $300 million to play baseball for you for the next 10 years, Dan, what you're basically saying is, we want you to be a central part of this organization. Like, you matter so much that we are going to pay you $300 million to bring value to this organization. That's how much we believe in you. That's how much we value you. That is how important you are going to be. You are going to play a central figure in this organization going forward. And they wanted to build the next great Red Sox team around this guy. Like, he was, for all intents and purposes, their Stephen Curry over there in Boston. His presence, his position, his voice is going to matter. And so when you place that kind of scenario on a hitter, but then go out and do what they did with Alex Bregman, I absolutely understand where Devers would get frustrated. Now, what happened with Bregman? Because I feel like this is where it all started to fall apart. I know this is where it all started to fall apart. Devers is a third baseman. He's not a very good defensive third baseman, but he was their third baseman. And when the Red Sox first started talking to Alex Bregman, the talks were not very serious, and they were so unserious that the Red Sox did not feel like they had to let Devers know that they were even talking to him. Now, Devers, he goes off to his home in the DR, I believe, Samana is where he goes to, and I guess he's very hard to get a hold of in the offseason, which the Red Sox, they're used to that. They don't like it, but they're used to it. And so they weren't able to get a hold of him, but they felt like it wasn't a big enough deal to get a hold of him. Right off the bat, that's where you start going wrong. Like, just having the talks with another third baseman. It's like if you have a girlfriend and you start talking to another girl and you're starting to potentially work out a relationship with her, like, that's still kind of cheat. Like, that's still cheating. You still can't be doing that. So right off the bat, I had issue with the fact that the Red Sox were talking to another third baseman before even letting Devers know. And I feel like, would Devers had gone along with things differently had the Red Sox approached him right off the bat? Hey, we're going to call Alex Bregman's people and see if we can work out a deal here. Would you be okay with that? You probably have a very, very different scenario that plays out in that situation.
Well, I think it's also important to note that Breslow, who is now essentially the acting general manager, he inherited Devers. And when you think about the article by Passan, money, I think, played an issue. And I think that Breslow was a little bit more frugal than the previous regime. And so Breslow inherited, he's not the guy that signed Devers. So when we say you just signed him in 2023, I think it's important to note that it was not the acting president of baseball ops that offered that contract to Devers. And that's a good place to start when you think about the relationship between the two. But yeah, to your point, it comes down to communication. And they did a very, very poor job of that. It's not unlike, on a much different level, but to bring it back home, with Brandon Crawford when Carlos Correa was a San Francisco Giant. And Farhan did not do a good job in communicating to Brandon Crawford that, you know what, you're not going to be our shortstop any longer. And how did Crawford take that? So communication at this level is everything. And they didn't do very well at it.
So I want to, you brought up the money there. I want to bring that up because you're right. Breslow did inherit Devers as a contract, but John Henry is the owner of that team. He's also the owner of of Liverpool FC. He's also the owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I guess I heard he's also buying a La Liga team as well, where he's in the works of it. I actually bumped into a couple Red Sox fans. There's a lot of Red Sox fans there last night, but I bumped into a couple who are from Montreal, of all places. One was wearing a bag over his head, and I was chatting up with them, and that's where they were kind of telling me, it's like, oh, yeah, John Henry, he wants to buy a La Liga team. I'm like, oh, well, that can't be fun for you to hear. And no, they did not enjoy hearing that. And so when you hear, when the money becomes an issue, see, I push back on that because the Red Sox, like the Giants, are a big market team. Money should not be an issue for a team with the financial resources of the Red Sox. And, so where I'm going with this is that, so you can't use the money as an example, as an excuse, because you have enough money to be able to afford contracts like this. This is a team that, can absorb ugly contracts from other teams to bring players in. That's the Red Sox financial might there. And so when you see a team move off a contract like Devers is, while at the same time, Liverpool just brought in a soccer player, Florian Wirtz, I think is his name, for $156 million over to Liverpool. So they see them shipping out $250 million and then spending $150 million while also buying another soccer team. If you're a Red Sox fan, I'm furious because I don't care about your other teams. I don't care about your soccer team on the other side of the planet. You are the owner of the Red Sox. Your duty is to the Red Sox. That is your primary team. That is the team you should be investing in, not a team on the other side of the planet. Let someone else deal with a team that's over there. And so that's my frustration there, and the frustration that I would have if I was a Red Sox fan. And then you talk about the communication. This is where...
Well, let me just...
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, yeah.
And then you can get into the communication. Yeah. Just to answer that, I think that the Red Sox, when they realized that they might have an issue in terms of the personality that is Rafael Devers, I think one of the things, again, spending time out in New York and out on the East Coast, New York influences a lot. And the fact that the Yankees, who print money, right? They make more money than anybody. It's the Dodgers and the Yankees. And when the Yankees decided that they weren't going to give Juan Soto, weren't going to give him his $45-50 million a year and let him walk, and then we're able to get multiple players and are actually even better. They got Fried and they got players, and they're actually a better baseball team. I don't know this is fact, but knowing that the rivalry between the two, I think it may have influenced the Red Sox that, you know what, if we can get out from underneath this, now it becomes really incumbent on them, on all that money that was allocated to him. If I'm a Red Sox fan, well, what are you going to do with it?
See, I think fans don't like that logic, though. They don't want you, because that was the Farhan thing. It's
I'm not saying it's right.
No. I think that's what I think fans reject that kind of stuff. They don't care about the value. They don't care about who's making how much money off of what. What they see is the product on the field, and what they see is a face of the franchise type guy, a centerpiece of a championship team. He was the last guy from that 2018 World Series team. Mm-hmm. That was a stupid good Red Sox team. Won 108 games. Mookie Betts was on it. Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, they were all 25 and under. And you had to feel like that was the beginning of a run. Remember the Warriors won in 2015, and they had Steph, Clay, and Dre, all ages 27 and under. And Warrior fans knew something incredible was about to happen. Now imagine if Joe Lacob slowly just let Steph, Clay, and Dre go after that 2015 title. That's basically what the Red Sox did. Think of how frustrated we would be to see that happen. And fans don't care about the money aspect. Like a team like the Red Sox with the financial might that they have, figure out a way to keep Devers on the roster and put Roman Anthony in the lineup and get Tristan Casas out there eventually when he comes back, and Tristan Campbell at second base, and figure out a way to make this lineup work. And that's where the communication comes into play, because what happened is, again, they don't tell them about the Bregman deal, and so they figure nothing serious is afoot. They don't feel, the line here is there wasn't enough confidence in a deal being consummated with either to flag Devers. See, that's where the communication falls off the wayside. Just talking to either of those players, Bregman or Nolan Arenado, who the Red Sox were in on, that's enough. You need to get a hold of Devers and let him know. If Devers is making $8 million a year, if he's on a 4-year, $36 million deal or something like that, yeah, it's easier to say, well, you know what? We weren't going to tell you at that point. But when you're giving a guy $300 million plus, like, it's more important to let someone know or let him know what's going on. This would be the equivalent of, like, imagine if the Warriors, after giving Steph a big contract, went out and got like a Damian Lillard to play point guard, but didn't tell Steph. And then afterwards, like, hey, Steph, can you move over to shooting guard so Dame can play point? Like, that would be ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying that obviously Rafi Devers is on Steph's level, but for the Red Sox, that's kind of the similar comp. That's your guy who you committed to, your centerpiece of the organization, and you went behind his back, and then you're asking him afterwards if you would be open to switch positions. And this deal kind of came together with Bregman very quickly at the end, in the middle of spring training, and they show up and they ask him, hey, they say, hey, can you be a DH? And Devers said, no, I want to play third. You didn't tell me this before. He asked, can we do like a transitionary thing where I play third some days and I DH others? The Red Sox nixed that, and this is where all the Farhan haters are going to get a little bit of PTSD here. I guess they showed him computer models and statistical data that showed that him in the DH spot would be far better for the Red Sox this year. And for a proud man like Rafael Devers, who took pride in his position, even if he didn't play it very well, that's kind of a slap in the face. And he eventually accepted the DH spot. And Alex Cora, where I think this was the next line of damage, basically told him, you don't need a glove this year. And so Devers, he kind of ran with that. And so things are good. But then again, Tristan Casas, he breaks his leg. And now it's like, well, now can you play first base? It's like, well, hold on. You told me I didn't even need a glove this year. And so it's just so many instances of Devers being told one thing. You're our guy here. But then they go behind his back. You're our third baseman. But then they go behind his back. We don't want you. We just want you to DH this year. But then they kind of go behind his back and want to change that. How many times can a player go through something like that before just throwing up his hands and being like, I can't deal with this anymore. And when you hear about how stiff and how poor at communicating Craig Breslow was, that's where it's just so much easier to take your finger and point it at Craig and be like, you botched this. You screwed this up. You created an impossible situation for your star player.
You know what, though, Sam? I would say that happens more frequently than we're aware of. It's not about miscommunication, that when you're a general manager, president of baseball ops, or you're an owner, you do what it is that you think is best for your baseball team, and players are assets. They're not, when you're thinking about these guys on a whiteboard, or when you're in a room and you're talking about potentially upgrading defensively, that's where the conversation begins and ends. What do we need to upgrade defensively? Can we go out and get Bregman? You don't have the personal communication. You should. I'm not defending this. But more often than not, I think you would find in professional sports, whether it's the NBA or Major League Baseball, that those communication lines are more often than not are cut off. You don't have that sort of back and forth. There isn't an open door policy. I think we'd all be surprised if we were privy to what was happening behind closed doors. That happens, I would say, on the daily when it comes to big trades. And I know to your point that it's somebody, again, if there are trades and there's trading a guy that is making $313 million over 10 years and is the centerpiece of your team. But unfortunately, it's not. And I think that it all went afoul for them when they flew down they went PJs, they like to say, private jets, John Henry and company, they went down to Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And that's when they said, hey, listen, can you play first base? And he said, I'm not doing it. I think it was on that flight back home, and they're like,
That's where they decided. It says, Paston wrote that in the article. So I want to put a quick pin in this because we are up against it. And as I said, we are going to do our weekly Bryce check. Let's see how Bryce Eldridge is doing over in Sacramento. And for that, we're going to go to our guy, Steven Risotto. They call him Pasta. Steven, give us our Bryce check, please.
Yeah, so we got a Bryce check today. It is a fun-filled Bryce check. We did not get the last one, so we do have some catching up to do, just a little bit. So, Bryce watch, last 5 games for the Giants' top prospect, 7 for 10. He's hitting .333, 2 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs. Guys, he is heating up. He is heating up. 935 OPS. Last night was a big night for him. He went 2 for 4, a double down the right field line, and also wrapped a single at 114.6 miles an hour. That is his hardest hit ball since he got to AAA Sacramento. And then on Tuesday, he hit his 10th home run of the year, and it sounded like this.
The pitch. Launched high and deep to right. Going back is Lugo. Looks up, and this ball's off the back brick wall beyond the right field fence. A 2-run home run for Bryce Eldridge. And he's now made it 5-0 River Cats here in the top of the 3rd.
Yes, he hit that against Salt Lake City, so that was a big swing there from Bryce Eldridge. Another thing that happened is that he's still working on his defensive course, and our good friend from Around the Foghorn, Jeff Young, tweeted this out. Bryce Eldridge just made a nice catch on a shallow fly ball in right field, covered a good bit of ground running backwards, and made a sliding catch to rob a hit. But although he did make an error on a foul ball later. I guess he misplayed a foul ball and then misplayed another foul ball an inning after that. And then, of course, Bryce. Oh, no. Bryce was in the news once again. We talked about the Devers trade quite a bit this morning. He was off limits, according to Alex Pavlovich of NBC Sports Bay Area. The Red Sox may have asked for him. Giants said absolutely not. And then the last bit of Bryce Eldridge news here is that JT Snow is going to pay him a visit in Sacramento. The Giants' former Gold Glove Award-winning first baseman is going to head to Sacramento next week, Friday through Sunday, to work with Bryce Eldridge on his defense. So he's getting a little bit of a help there from somebody who knows the position all too well.
Good stuff, Rizzo. All right. Well, Bryce Eldridge, you might need to start talking about calling him up again. No, we're not actually going to do that again. So thank you there for that Bryce check. We're going to continue this Rafael Devers conversation on the other side. Would love to hear from Giants fans on this. 888-957-9570 is the number. Did you read the Paston article? Do you care about why Devers left Boston? Do you care about the communication issues? Or is that all in the past and you're like Rafi, you're just here, you just want to see him play some baseball? We'll hear from some sound on the other side. You'll hear from Bob Melvin about when Devers will play first. Also, Will Fleming, does he think he could be a face of the franchise type player? Rafi Devers, that is. Hear from him on the other side as well. And then Grant Brisbee, we are 30 minutes away from him joining the show. So much going on here on a Saturday. And we also have a lineup for today's 1 o'clock first pitch. I'll unveil that on the other side as well. All that is brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
one thing to just field the ball and throw it. It's another thing at first base to cut off some relays, bunt plays, completely the other side of the diamond. You got to get him some, like flip fungos and stuff to where he's getting the spin off a lefty's bat. So it's a process for him, and we're not going to rush anything.
Is this homestand realistic?
I'm not sure. There'll kind of be an aha moment where he kind of feels better about it, but until you've actually played a game, it's tough to kind of realize kind of what you're up against. So there's going to be, when he gets out there's going to be some uncomfortable games until he gets up to speed at the position.
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap on 95.7 The Game.
That was a Bob Melvin pregame with a cameo from Alex Pavlovich of NBC Sports Bay Area. Talk about when Rafael Devers might be seen at first base, and it's going to be a while. It does not happen overnight. So in the meantime, we'll probably see a lot of Big Dom Smith and Wilmer Flores handling first base for the time going for the Giants. And
how much in the face of the Sox would that have been had he played first base in this series?
Oh, it would have been such a... We asked Will Fleming this, and he had the best way of saying it. Here's what Will Fleming had to say about Rafael Devers potentially playing first base.
It was an enormous middle finger to everybody with the Red Sox. It was. There's no other way to see that. And again, this notion of I'll do whatever they want, but they didn't ask me nicely enough in Boston. That to me is absolutely outrageous.
So Will Fleming not happy about how Devers handled things on his side. And Will Fleming actually was very close with Rafi during his time in Boston. He called a lot of Rafi's minor league games, and he was the only guy who could speak Spanish at that time around them. And so he had to translate all of Rafi's media availability. So he grew pretty close with Rafael Devers. And so it's for him to say that, that's pretty interesting as well. But again, his teammates, his manager, they all seem to be going to bat for him. Manny Ramirez, who knows Rafael Devers pretty well and knows what it's like dealing with the drama of the Boston Red Sox, he was defending Rafael Devers. Here's what he had to say earlier this week at the MLB Draft Combine.
Come on, Boston. Why you did my guy like that? You don't treat the face of the team like that. Actually, you're not only the respecting Devers, you the respecting the whole fan base.
That's how I feel disrespected, Manny.
That's it. You have to. I don't care if you pay me 300 or 400 million. You need to communicate with me. I'm gonna put it this way: it's like you telling Aaron Judge next year, as soon as he gets to spring training, hey, I want you to be a catcher. How he's gonna respond?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
How he's gonna respond?
I know.
So that was one Red Sox legend.
Man Ram.
That was Manny Ramirez. And he had a line in this passing story. Let me see if I can find it here. In 2008, when he was traded to the Dodgers, he told ESPN Deportes, "Mental peace has no price, and I don't have peace here." That is in reference to the Red Sox. A Red Sox legend, Manny Ramirez, who helped end the curse of the Bambino in 2004. But wait, there's more Boston Red Sox legends rushing to the defense of one Rafael Devers. Hey, Pedro Martinez, what's the deal with these locker room issues in Rafael Devers?
I was shocked, just like everybody else. I was shocked because if you try to sell to me, knowing Rafi Devers, that Rafi is a bad teammate or he's not a team player, you're lying. You're going to tell me he's a bad influence in the clubhouse? He's not. Does he want to play every single day? Yes, that's probably why he was mad. Well, the thing got mishandled from the get-go. And I think if I'm Jimmy and I'm Grandy and we have an ex-teammate or a teammate that's not doing things like they should be doing, we pull him aside, all three of us, and we convince him to come into the things that we want to do together. This should have been in the hands of baseball people, not front office people, not leaking it to the media, not having a back and forth between the media and Alex and Sam Kennedy and Breslow. So I think it should have been handled by baseball people, Pedroia, Big Papi.
So again, a lot of these guys coming to the defense of Rafael Devers, and this whole thing becomes a big he said kind of situation. And Daniel, I mentioned I bumped into a couple Red Sox fans last night who were upset with Breslow and ownership. I then asked them, who do you put the blame on here? And they said 70% of it goes to Devers. So a lot of finger pointing going on here, and it's a lot to have to sort through and figure out, because what it all comes down to, why this matters for Giants fans, why we should care, is this is the guy that we're married to for the next 8.5 years. And he's going to be well into his 30s when this deal ends. Are the Giants biting into a bad apple here? Or were things just so nuts and bad in Boston that he had to get out, and that really was just a disaster of Boston's own making?
By the way, Big Papi defended the Red Sox.
He did, yes. We'll hear from, I'm going to play the Jonathan Papelbon sound in a minute. He was also pretty defensive of the Red Sox.
And I think it's important to note that Big Papi's also taking a paycheck as a consultant for the Red Sox, which is...
And I believe Papelbon is a broadcaster for the Red Sox, so...
But I would say this, again, when it comes to Rafael Devers getting dealt here, all of this drama is the reason why he's here. And you had to make this trade. And if you're Buster Posey in the San Francisco Giants, he's not available if all of this drama doesn't ensue. If he picks up a glove and plays first base, then he's not hitting in the middle of the lineup for San Francisco. And what is the Giants? When is the last time they had a guy who was a middle of the lineup guy?
Barry Bonds.
You're right.
Yeah.
Or just
No
somebody
disrespect to Buster Posey or Hunter Pence.
Lineup.
Yeah.
And they finally got one. So I really don't give a rip how he got here, but he's here. And so if you're hung up on, well, could he be a cancer potentially? You know what, Sam? I would just say that you're at a point right now where, because the offense is so bad, that you had to sort of take this risk.
Yeah.
That if Rafael Devers is available and you're hitting like you're hitting right now, you have to pull that trigger. Yep. 7 days a week, twice on Sunday.
Shades of Jimmy Butler even, a little bit. A disgruntled superstar, didn't like how things were handled by the people above him. Warriors swoop in, rescue him, and he found his joy again. And Rafi Devers on Tuesday looked like the man who found his baseball joy again.
The difference between the two is that he's still very much in his prime.
Yes.
And Jimmy Butler is on the wrong side of 35.
Yes.
On the back end of his
So they're going to
career.
have a lot more time with Rafael Devers to make this work out. And I do believe that he is coming to a far better cultural situation with the Giants than he had with the Red Sox, which, if this was the previous front office regime, I'd have some consternation about Devers being here if that trade ever did get worked out. But Buster Posey's a straight shooter. He's a smart guy. He's a smart baseball guy. He understands the importance of communication. He understands the importance of empowering his players. He understands the importance of making players feel comfortable, because the San Francisco Giants, they have a history of taking care of their players. Maybe a little too much so. They are very good at making players feel comfortable and important and taken care of. Devers also has a couple guys in this clubhouse, and I'm talking about Matt Chapman and Willie Adames. And Adames is a great friend of Rafael Devers, who Rafi will be able to kind of blend in with. And also, and this is, I'm kind of curious how Giants fans feel about this. Devers is not going to have to be the leader, per se, of this organization in the same way that Buster Posey once was, because that's what Matt Chapman is here for. That's what Willie Adames is here for. Those guys are the vocal leaders on this team. And we've heard from a lot of people on the station this week that Devers is not vocal. He's not guy talks to the media. He's not your typical face of the franchise in terms of he's not going to rise up and say, all right, follow in behind me. He leads more by example. He leads with his bat. Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because we have guys here in Adames and Chapman that can handle that load instead. So 888-957-9570. Would love to hear from Giants fans on that. Do you care about the drama? Do you care if he's not the leader of this team and is just the big bat of this team? Would love to hear from fans. Let's go to the lines. SF Bay Drummer in Houston. You're on the Wrap. What do you got about Rafi Devers and the Giants this season?
Hey, what's up, What's up, Sam? And good morning, Dan.
What's up, Drummer?
I really don't care about nothing much, man. I don't care what happened, like pretty much in Boston. Whatever is over there, it's staying over there. But I do want to call out the 2025 SF Giants who broke spring training camp and came onto the roster. These guys have to hit. Like, I'm watching Rafael Devers, like, just trying to be the hero and, like, make these big hits so that we can get, like, runs and everything like that. And I've seen the Giants before Rafael even got here and was even a thought. The guy was just back there, like, everybody was hitting. Like, they need to make it, like, more inclusive and help, Rafael adjust. It's not that hard. So, like, they just need to be better. Like, Buster did you a solid. Let's reward Buster for, like, even taking initiative to make a trade to try to help you guys and start getting some hits and scoring some runs. Because you're going to run into an issue where you're going to run out of season, and then we're going to be maybe one game out of the wild card because we lost a game that we should have won. And there's going to be several we can point to within the last 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's all I got. Have a good afternoon. Go Giants.
Appreciate you, Drummer. Go Giants there. And I'm going to push back a little bit about what Drummer said. The adjustments can be difficult. It's about coming to a new place, coming to a new lineup, hitting in a new ballpark. Devers was asked, how do you feel about hitting at Oracle Park on Tuesday? And he's like, man, I can hit anywhere. It's baseball. And then we saw last night, I believe I brought this up earlier in the show, but third inning, he hits a deep fly ball out to left center that dies right in front of the B of A sign. You know, welcome to Oracle, Rafi. It gets cold and windy at night here. It's not like Boston, which gets warm and humid in the summer. But Dan, I'm going to throw to you here. What do you care at all if he is that leader face of the franchise, or are you okay if he's just the biggest bat in the franchise?
Yeah, I don't need him to be the leader simply because he gets the most money. I think, is Shohei the leader of the Dodgers? You could say he is, but I would say that's more of a Freddie Freeman team.
Yeah, Mookie Betts team. But Shohei's your best player. Mm-hmm.
And English is his second language as well, which I think plays a part in all of this. I don't need, simply because he makes the most, that he has to be my leader. I'm with you. I'm with you that I think that making the transition a lot more seamless is guys like Willie Adames. And Willie Adames has now become he can't hit, so now he's the new ambassador of the team.
He's the most
Latin players.
He's a $180 million cheerleader, and now he's a $180 million best friend for Rafi Devers. So
no, but I do think it makes a difference when you come to a clubhouse that has that sort of Latin influence, and your best players are Elliot Ramos, and your leaders on the team are Latin guys like Willie Adames.
Mm-hmm.
It's stepping into a different culture. And I do think it's significant. But, yeah, Willie Adames, it's great what it is you're doing, but I need you more than just simply taking off the helmet of the guy that just scored a run and welcoming as the new ambassador to the Giants guys like that of Rafi Devers. How about squaring up a couple of pitches these days?
Yeah, I know. So that's definitely, something they're going to have to get to at some point. We asked Will Fleming if Devers could be a face of the franchise type and whether, getting out of Boston was a good thing for him. Here's what Will had to say on him getting a fresh start.
That stuff is real, the stuff that's coming out about, his intransigence and his unwillingness to do some of those things. The only thing I can liken it to is like a broken marriage in a way, where you just hope that it just was poisoned and it was never going to get better in that way. Just the communication and the feelings were hurt on both sides. So I just think if he comes here when he's here now, I think that it has a chance to be a great new start for him. And I don't think he's ever going to be like the face of the franchise of any franchise. He's never going to do a ton of media. He's never going to talk a lot, and that's fine. And by the way, the Red Sox acknowledged that too when they gave him $300+ million. They never asked him to do a lot of that stuff. They said, we just want you to hit. And hit he does.
So again, the Red Sox were ready for him to not be that guy, to not be that leader, but they still placed that money on him. They were still willing to elevate his importance within the organization there. So they were clearly content with it. Giants fans, I think they'll be content with it as long as he's producing at the plate, which hopefully that will start soon. I mean, if there's ever a weekend to get your back going with your new team, it is against your old team here in the Red Sox. And putting up an ugly 0 for 5 last night, not a great way to keep endearing yourself.
Will Fleming is much more outspoken than his brother Dave.
Oh, Dave can get pretty outspoken,
Does
too.
he? Okay.
Dave dropped some spicy nuggets on us last year, too. So
Dave is the older brother?
Dave is the older one. Will is the younger brother, yes.
Both products of Stanford University?
I believe so, yeah. They were both golfing at the SF Golf Club yesterday. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Dave's a member of every single golf club in the country, it seems like. So.
They both did go to Stanford, by the way.
No, I know. I just said that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pasta.
You're welcome.
Listen, I which by the way, go Cal. This is not,
go Bears. The axe is where it should be.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Did I mention they went to Stanford?
Oh, okay. So Will always had to say, I've been teasing this Papelbon said. You got to hear what Jonathan Papelbon said about Devers as a teammate.
Can we do it with some Dropkick Murphy? Go ahead.
We do have that in there, but no, we'll do that another time. We did that actually yesterday. We played a bunch like David Portnoy, Jared Carabas. We played an NBC 10 in Boston clip.
Why is Portnoy doing Dropkick Murphys?
Well, no, we played his little I'm sad that Devers got traded
Gotcha.
soliloquy that he splurted out on Twitter. And then I don't like David Portnoy. And we played Dropkick Murphys underneath it as a way to be like, ha. But Jonathan Papelbon came with Willard I believe it was Willard and Grandy this day. This was on, I want to say, Tuesday. And Papelbon, he had a lot to say. He was very unfiltered. He was very loose, let's just say that. And here's what he had to say on Devers being a bad teammate.
I do. He wasn't willing to conform to what the Red Sox needed. And when you're the highest paid player and your company or your team needs something, I think it's up to that person that they have to do what's best for the team. Am I in that clubhouse? No, I'm not. Do I hear little riffs and stuff about what's going on? Yeah, here and there. But I do know for 110% fact that John Henry was not happy with Rafael Devers. And John Henry solely made this decision.
So what do you think of Papelbon's comments there?
I think he's getting a paycheck from John Henry.
It's weird how all the guys who are getting paychecks from John Henry saying one thing and all the guys who are no longer getting paychecks are saying another, other than, of course, his former manager in Alex Cora, who had this to say about Rafi as a teammate.
Rafi was always ready to play at 7 o'clock. He was always ready. He was ready to hit, ready to play defense whenever he played defense, and I appreciate that.
Or Trevor Story, who was a teammate of his.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed playing with him. He's a great guy. I love the kid. He's, he was good to, I think, a lot of people in here. He was, helped a lot of people, a lot of the young guys. I know he was big with the Latin kids too. He definitely helped in his way, and I think, he did a lot of good stuff for the Boston Red Sox.
So who do you believe, the guys who have paychecks on this, or the guys who don't? And that's where it becomes the he said thing. But again, at the end of the day, the important thing is, as you have said, Dan, is he's still here with the Giants, and that's what really matters. And it all comes down to is, do Giants fans care about the past? And that's why I think this is such a great move for the Giants, because they had the cultural infrastructure to avoid going down the dark paths that the Red Sox did with Devers. I don't think that the Giants would ever go behind Devers' back to sign a guy to play the position that they said, we want you to play. I don't think the Giants would have the communication breakdowns. Like, I get what Papelbon is saying. When you're the highest paid player, there's a level of onus that you got to take upon yourself to kind of go that extra mile for your team. But these things do go both ways. These relationships are two ways. They are not one way. I believe that when you give a guy that much money, it becomes more of a two-way thing. How you treat your stars matters in this day and age. And if you are a team that is not going to acknowledge that reality, then you're going to be a team that ends up like the Boston Red Sox are right now.
I would suggest two things to Giant fans. Is don't even concern yourself of what happened in Boston and what side you're going to take here. the only reason he was available is because of how he was perceived as being a problem child with the Boston Red Sox. And you needed Rafael Devers. So it doesn't matter whether or not he was a good player or a company man or not. The fact that, he was available because of that he wouldn't play first base is all you need to focus on. That's the only way he was able to be traded and come to San Francisco. And the other thing that I would suggest you don't focus on is the 10 years and $300 million contract, which I know eventually people will go there. Look, it's not our money. And I think, as you alluded to, the Giants
don't care about the money.
The Giants can afford it, all right?
You see those buildings out beyond right field? Yeah, those are going to pay for this contract.
So don't even worry about the money, okay? And as far as, what's going to happen at the back end of that contract, there's probably a good chance that he's going to be a very unproductive baseball player, maybe those last 2 or 3 years.
If he's a DH only.
Maybe not, but that's
you'd
just
extend your career as a DH,
But if you can win now, or if you can win a couple of World Series, unfortunately, that's the way things are thought of right now. If you're getting a contract like that, if I can get some good years, I'm willing to eat that, right? And so just live in the here and now. And I think one of our callers called in earlier, I think it was Alex from Atlanta, and he said he felt as though that this was sort of an evaluation season. I'd like to get your thoughts on that, Sam, by that of Buster Posey, that he was inheriting this team and he was just sort of evaluating it. It's going to be next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would disagree because I think, keep in mind, a week ago they were a game back of the Dodgers. They had won 7 in a row. They were ensconced for a playoff position. I think getting Devers was all about winning this damn year. It was about going as far as you can and potentially going back to a World Series this year. This isn't about tomorrow. It's not about down the road. This is about winning today and the reason why you got Devers.
I absolutely agree with you. If you were to ask me this time a week ago what this season was, I'd be more inclined to agree with what Alex said, that this is an evaluation year. It is a playoffs and try again year. That's what this year was. Now, though, with Devers on board, and maybe we can get into this after we talk to Grant. I'm actually curious. I'd like to ask Grant Brisbee this on the other side. He'll be joining us in a few moments. Grant Brisbee covers the Giants for The Athletic. I feel like this ratchets up the pressure on this season. This is no longer a playoffs or try again. I think there's a matter of playoffs or bust now on this team. You have a very legitimate looking lineup right now with Devers when Chapman comes back, if Adames can get things going. When you look at this lineup and you know the potential this lineup has, I see very little excuse to not make the playoffs. We had a conversation in the Morning Roast the other day. Is this season already a success for the Giants? This has been a very good season for the Giants. They have got a star locked up. They have a legitimate core locked up for the foreseeable future. Having a core is not enough, though. I think now this season has gone from, Buster took the season, went from this is an evaluation year 0 to this is a year 1, I want to see you in the playoffs kind of year. So I'm going to ask Grant Brisbee about that on the other side. We'll ask him a bunch of other things about the Giants as well. And he will be joining us very soon on the River Islands guest line. So stay tuned for that. That'll be on the other side. Brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
drive. That'll be a base hit. Here comes Ramos, and Matt Williams is going to wave him in. Here's the throw home. Not in time. And Flores down to second, and they got him.
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap on 95.7 The Game.
We are back on the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap, and for the first time, officially, not pre-recorded, officially live, we are going to go to the River Islands guest line. We're going to talk to our friend Grant Brisbee. You probably read him on The Athletic. You might have read him once upon a time on McCovey Chronicles. Heck, you might have seen him on TV on Giants Outsiders once upon a time. He joins us here. Grant, thank you so much for joining us on the Wrap this morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be on.
Awesome. So let's get right into what's going on with the Giants. And obviously, Rafael Devers has been the story all week long. And I guess right off the bat, just how when we talked about the Giants the last few years, getting stars was such a grind. The free agents didn't want to come here. It was impossible to get a major bat. But with Devers now on this team, how much does this deal kind of change how we should view the Giants both now and in the near future?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of a coup compared to, or considering what they've been trying to do over the last few years. I mean, you start with Giancarlo Stanton, you go through Harper, Ohtani, Judge, all the Correa drama. They've been trying and trying and trying, and that's the obvious story. But I also think that the idea of a star is a little bit overblown, because when the Giants were rolling and selling out and had the sellout streak, they had Crawford and Belt and Posey. I mean, those are really good players. Those are all-stars, but I'm not sure if they're stars. So they just needed better players. The good news is that Devers is a little bit of both. I don't think he has name brand recognition outside of the Boston area. He's just a really good player, and he's been a really good player for a decade. He's young enough to where you think he's going to continue to hit at least for the next 3, 4, 5 years. That's really what the Giants needed more than star power, because once the wins come, then the fans come, and the superstars are the ones we made along the way. So it's Crawford doesn't necessarily get any Hall of Fame votes, but he's a star in the Giants' orbit.
Hey Grant, this is Dan Avone. Really quick, when we talk about Devers, well, why don't you just update us? How long before we see him playing first base?
Well, he was saying when he's ready, and that's really the issue here. Is I don't think he's getting paid a lot of money to play baseball, and some people might say he's getting paid a lot of money to embarrass himself if need be. I don't think he wants to embarrass himself, and I don't think that's an unrealistic. When you've accomplished as much as he has, when you've made 3 All-Star games, when you've helped win a World Series, when you've been the faces of a franchise that let other faces of the franchise leave, you get a little bit of say. Like, listen, that's not necessarily where I feel comfortable right now. I don't know if he's worried that it would bleed over into his hitting, his overall just mindset when playing the game. I don't think it's unrealistic, and I empathize with the argument of that's what the money's for. I mean, you pay me as much as him, I will write, hagiographies about Tommy Lasorda, and I will, describe a secret moonlit dinner with him or something. You pay me that money, I'll write all sorts of things. But with Devers, it's just, when he feels comfortable, he feels comfortable, and that could be a couple weeks, could be a couple months. I don't blame him personally.
Talking to Grant Brisbee here on the River Islands guest line, covers the Giants for The Athletic. And Grant, Buster Posey has completely he's really revamping this Giants team, which is a far cry from what we saw in the most recent regime with Farhan Zaidi, who seemed so risk averse when it came to making big deals. Like, he had to win every single deal here. Whereas Buster, it felt like he's kind of steering into the risk a bit. What do you make of the aggressive nature that Buster took here in making this deal come together?
Yeah, I'm constantly reminded by one of my podcast hosts that the Dodgers, they'll say, if you want to be realistic, if you want to be logical about every free agent, you'll never sign a free agent, right? There has to be some sense of, okay, I'm going over the top of what I feel comfortable with, and now the free agent is on our team in the organization. So that's the story of free agency. You have to pay a certain premium to past the point of what you feel comfortable with. But I will say, now that the new guy's in and things are going a little bit better, it seems like everyone's likes to dump on the old guy. But the moves that Buster has made, Justin Verlander, Willie Adames, not necessarily contributing to the total wins on the field. But the biggest difference to me is that sense of, hey, we're going to do something. We trust in you guys. It's getting a sense that someone at the top who's running it is someone who's been in the clubhouse before, won championships before. It might sound like hokum and it might sound like smoke and mirrors to us, but I do think that the culture of the clubhouse is different in a way that even with Adames struggling, even with Verlander struggling amidst an IL stint, there's a belief there, a shared belief that, I can't believe I'm this old and talking about intangibles, but here I am. I'm this old and talking about intangibles, and it seems like Buster's bringing a little bit of them to the table.
Yeah, hey, intangibles still matter, Grant. We love those intangibles. And I want to follow up that because you do bring up the culture there, and I'm sure you read the Jeff Passan story that dropped on ESPN yesterday, and he painted a very grim picture of how things were being handled in Boston in terms of the communication there. The situation that Devers is coming into here, is this an organization, do you feel that is going to be better at communicating with him? Is this a better clubhouse culture you think that he's coming into? Just if you could speak more on terms of just how much the organizational structure and culture of the Giants, how is that going to be beneficial for Devers, whereas it was kind of a detriment, so to speak, in Boston?
Yeah, I can't really speak to the situation in Boston without, I haven't talked to any Red Sox players or been around them. So I can't speak to if it's insular, if it's a top-down problem or anything like that. I do know that whatever is leaked out, it doesn't paint the Red Sox in the best picture, because what it feels like is that Devers was a franchise cornerstone for the last front office. The new front office comes in and says, okay, we got this guy under contract, don't necessarily love that contract, whatever, but he's a useful player on our teams. He's a good player. Let's treat him like any other useful, good player. Hey, can he go over here when needed? Hey, can you do this? Whereas Devers said, hey, you're the guys that let Betts go and Bogarts go. I'm the guy now. Why are you jerking me around? I get it. And I just think the Giants were smart enough to realize an opportunity. And it's very simple to just approach them and say, hey, we've got this idea. What do you think? What do you think, Rafael Devers, 3-time All-Star and young superstar? And then he can have an open line of communication with them, as opposed to playing things in the press and just sort of these quiet, off-the-record meetings between owner and player, between GM and player, all that stuff. It's just, I don't know if the Giants are going to bring something specific to it that any other team couldn't have, but it's definitely how it needed to happen. It's just a team saying, hey, we think you're Rafael Devers, 3-time All-Star. We think you're really good. What do you think? And that's what the Red Sox failed to do, at least from all inside sources.
Hey, Grant, we're coming up on a week since the Devers trade, and the team still can't hit. If this continues, can you see Buster Posey making another deal before the trade deadline?
Maybe. I mean, it's certainly possible. This came out of nowhere. I really do think that the prescription for the Giants, now that they have Devers, is just to get the other people going. I mean, Yastrzemski's been on a little bit of a hot streak leading up to last night. Couldn't come through in the ninth inning, but you need to get Jung-Hoo Lee hitting again. You need to get Matt Chapman back. You need to get, if Patrick Bailey's not going to hit like an above-average catcher, he can at least hit like an average catcher and not someone who you have to bury and pinch hit for in the late innings. There's just a lot of room for improvement on the roster. If there is a spot, if there's a fit at second base to get some sort of veteran, I know they've been waiting for Tyler Fitzgerald to break out and recapture some of that glory from last year. They started Christian Koss twice in a row. Really didn't work out on Friday night, but that's sort of they're sort of searching for something else, another way to get offense. And if you look around the diamond, if you're thinking Chapman here and Adames eventually might get going, and you're thinking Devers at first, and you're poking around and seeing where you have a space to upgrade, it would probably be second base or bust. I mean, unless some other, superstar player becomes available that could justify moving someone like Yastrzemski out of the lineup or justify some other big move, it's got to be second base. I don't know that there's going to be Jose Altuve in his prime or something waiting for the Giants. So that would be the only place I could see it. Otherwise, I think it's Devers or bust and hope for improvements and better health.
Grant Brisbee here joining us on the River Islands guest line. See what he has to write about in The Athletic. Wrote a lot of great stuff about Rafael Devers this week. But, Grant, as my co-host Dan just said, the hitting is just not there. And, I was kind of bringing up earlier on the show that when hitters start to struggle, it's not all that dissimilar from football. Like when the Niners defense lets up a touchdown, everybody immediately wants to fire Nick Sorensen. Right now, Pat Burrell is in the crosshairs of a lot of angry Giants fans on Twitter, and as you and I both know, Twitter is absolutely real life. What do you make of just the automatic blaming of the hitting coach for the hitting struggles of the Giants, especially lately with runners in scoring position?
It never made sense to me when I was a starting blogger back in the 2000s. And the more I've gotten into the game and the more I've been in the clubhouse, the more I've been around a little bit, I still don't get it. Like, I don't know what Pat Burrell does. And I'm not saying I don't know what a hitting coach does. I don't know the messages that Burrell is relaying in one-on-one conversations. I don't know what he's seeing and how he's relaying it. That's what a hitting coach does, right? He gets information. He watches someone. He figures out solutions, some tweaks, and then conveys it in a way. And then it's up to the players to implement it. I don't know if he's doing that well, if he's doing it poorly. I mean, you could remember back in the day where the Tigers they got the Giants guy, they got they got Geely, they got Eckers, we need all this stuff, and then all of a sudden that guy gets fired, and it's what is a hitting coach is just a proxy for I am unsatisfied with the offense. So that's not a justification for keeping Burrell on. It's just a knee-jerk approach where I think it's more on the players. I mean, it's more on the players to start hitting. If the information's not getting distilled in a way that's helping them hit, that's certainly something to look into. But I will say this about the Giants offense is that right now league-wide offensive levels are down. The Giants play in one of the toughest pitchers park, if not the toughest pitchers park in baseball. Those two things will make a slightly below average offense seem much, much worse. And by park adjusted metrics, the Giants aren't good. They're not great, but they're not, abysmal. They're not ending the list of adjusted OPS or all the fancy stats like they were in maybe, 2011 when the offense was really just gasping for air. That's not this team. It looks worse. It feels bad because, every 2-1 game in Oracle Park is just a grind, but that has a lot to do with the league-wide scoring levels. It has to do with the ballpark. And yeah, it has to do with the Giants being a below average offensive team. But I don't think that they are a desperate offensive team, especially now that they have Devers.
Hey, Grant, now that Kyle Harrison's gone, let's just say, and stay with me here, that the Giants are in the playoffs and the playoffs start tomorrow. You got to reduce the rotation. You go Webb, you go Ray. Who's the third starter?
Whew, that's a heck of a question. I mean, Birdsong does look pretty good when he's right. He didn't look so right on Friday night. I would think you go Webb, you go Ray. It wouldn't be Roop. Yeah, I think I would go with Birdsong perhaps, and hope for the best. I think that's going to be the key of the next few months, is that it's going to be more evidence for whomever the Giants would choose, just getting those couple months. Because if you remember back in 2021, at this point in the season, Webb was on the IL and just like some guy, like a sixth starter that you weren't even thinking about. And then it was the second half where Webb just emerged into the pitcher he is today with his magic sinker and assortment of pitches. So I would say right now, maybe Birdsong, but also, I don't know, who's to say?
Luckily, the playoffs don't start tomorrow, though, Grant, so we don't need to answer that question right away. But I agree with you. I do think it would be Birdsong. But there is still a lot of season left. And obviously, Kyle Harrison is no longer on the roster. And he was kind of the sixth man of the five-man rotation, so to speak, when this season began. And you and I, we've been watching Giants baseball enough to know that you need a lot of pitchers on your pitching staff. The last few years, we've seen this team have, Logan Webb, and we're scraping together who knows and what knows to find starting pitching here. But Harrison, he was that first guy to kind of come in this year, like when Justin Verlander got injured. That's what elevated Kyle Harrison back into the rotation. But he's gone now, and there's still a lot of season left, and knock on wood that this doesn't happen, but at some point, a pitcher in the Giants rotation might not be available when that day, or if that day does come. I'm going to say if here and be optimistic. Who is the first pitcher that is brought in to fill that spot? Which Carson is it? Is it a Mason? Which name do you think comes up?
I think it would be boring at first, if only because Carson Whisenhunt isn't on the 40-man roster. They would love to keep that spot open for deadline additions, for any waiver claims they might need. If the moment arises, 40-man roster spots, they're finite, they're valuable. So you want to delay. It's got to be Whisenhunt just blowing through AAA if you're going to call him up and use him as the emergency starter. And if he's not, if he's just having a good kind of one of those confusing prospect seasons where some nights are better than others, you keep him down as long as it takes, and then you go with someone. And the Giants do have plenty on the 40-man roster. The Sacramento rotation so overstuffed that Tristan Beck couldn't get in, and he's been, I don't know if he's officially converted for a reliever permanently, but he would be a logical step to come in and give maybe not a full starter's complement, but some bulk innings, 2, 3, 4 innings in the event of an injury. But they have plenty of guys on the 40-man roster. Keaton Wynn maybe could be moved to the 60-day IL to make a spot for Carson Whisenhunt. But there are, I think, 6 additional starting pitchers now, even with Harrison gone, who are on the 60-man roster or 40-man roster. So it would be someone boring. I think it would be a Carson. It would be, but not Carson Whisenhunt. It wouldn't be the best prospect available. It would be the most functional, just a guy to make a spot start here and there. If it's Mason Black, if it's Tristan Beck, someone like that.
All right, Grant, you knew we had to go here at some point. What are the chances that Bryce Eldridge comes up with the Giants, and at what part of the year? And then, listen, if Devers is over at first base, can he be the everyday DH?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, but I think right now it's being made a little bit easier for the Giants because Eldridge is struggling in his debut at Sacramento, not struggling so much where you have concerns, but it's not as if he's plowing through the Pacific Coast League. He's still just 20. It's definitely a hit over glove profile right now. Most of the reports on him at first base are, wow, this is going to take a little bit of time. The reports when he would play the outfield was nope. And it doesn't seem like that has changed with the Devers trade. So right now they're in the position where I think it's kind of comfortable for everyone, where you get to let the 20-year-old prospect be a 20-year-old prospect. When he hits his way to the majors, he'll be up, whether it's DH, whether it's as the starting first baseman with Devers, the DH. They'll figure that out. It feels like once every 3 weeks, I remind people that when Buster Posey was drafted, there were people online that said, well, what about Pablo Sandoval? He's the catcher of the future. Not quite. And these things have a way of working themselves out. So my guess is that Eldridge doesn't come up at all this year. Not unless he's hitting 400 in Sacramento or 300, which is a ton of power, and they can slot him right in and just expect that power and not worry so much about the defense. But I would be moderately surprised if Eldridge were called up. Moderately, not like, wow, they really blew my mind, but just sort of like, I could see them keeping him down all year.
Grant Brisbee here joining us on the River Islands guest line, covers the Giants for The Athletic. A couple more before we get you out of here, Grant. Jung-Hoo Lee, first month of the season, was San Francisco Giants baseball. The hooligans movement was taking over. Everyone loved themselves some Jung-Hoo Lee, and it's been a slow march in the wrong direction, really, ever since the start of May. He's hitting 185 in the month of June. That was before last night's 0 for 4. I've asked Bob Melvin about this a couple times. He's mentioned that he sees him kind of pushing and pressing too hard at the plate. I'm just kind of curious, when you kind of see Jung-Hoo Lee, and I know you're great at kind of opening up the hood and diving into the deeper numbers there, what are you seeing from Jung-Hoo Lee? Is there a level of concern there, or is this just a hitter in his first full big league season kind of going through the usual adjustments that hitters in that situation go through?
I think both things can be true where you have a hitter, he's still a young hitter, who is seeing stuff that he's never seen before, right? The KBO doesn't feature this assortment of stuff. When you get a pitcher coming over from the KBO who finds success, it's like Merrill Kelly, right? It's someone who is adept at hitting spots. That's what passes for a top-of-the-rotation pitcher over there. So he's seeing stuff he's never seen before. He's seeing 99 from the left side. He's seeing wipeout breaking balls, and he's still making pretty good contact compared to the rest of the league. He's not swinging and missing as much. He's not chasing as much as the typical hitters in the league. I will say that when you look at his overall game, it's not a ton of power. It's not a ton of walks. What he's going to need to do is hit for average, and when you're an average first hitter, you're going to be subject to all this weirdness, all the weirdness with balls in play, with line drives you hit right at guys with, he has that roll over to second base down pat, but that's not all that we're seeing in this slump. He is putting the bat in the ball and getting it to fielders out in the outfield. I think his expected batting average, if you use the nerd stats, is still up there in the 280s, 290s. So it could just be poor luck to some extent. But I think this is just the nature of who he is. He's going to have months where he hits 330 and looks like the reincarnation of Tony Gwynn. He's going to have months where he's hitting 180, and that's just what happens when you put the ball in play. Once you do that, it's a little bit out of your control unless you're hitting it over the fence or hitting it 110 miles per hour. Neither of those are Lee's game, so I think he's just going to be a streaky player from the outside just as he waits for those hits to fall in.
Great stuff there from Grant Brisbee of The Athletic. Last one here for you here, Grant. As Giants fans, we're conditioned to seeing this team lose a free agent battle, and then the immediate pivot is, they're going to really regret that deal in a few years. The Giants got three guys now, Devers, Chapman, and Adames, who are signed to very long deals. So let's play the game. Which one do you think they regret at the end? Who do you think will look the best at the end of their contract? Of those three?
Yeah, I think they'll regret all of them because that's just the nature of long-term free agent deals. It's very rare where you get to say, I think Buster Posey was a good example where he signed this, a position that's fraught with payroll and you sign him for a long-term deal, but by the end you're like, hey, wait, don't go, come back. That's pretty rare. So I think they're going to regret all of them. I do think Adames will give them a couple of good years before it really starts to hurt and they start wondering about position changes and stuff like that. I don't think the first half of the season is necessarily indicative of his true talent level. I'm not willing to write him off after a rough first month. Chapman has some old player skills, but he also has that defense is going to just give him a chance to be valuable even when he's hitting 200. And, as long as he can hit a few home runs and play defense like he has, that's someone you still want in the lineup. And I don't see why he can't do that until he's 35. Of the three, I think Devers would be the one that would age the best just because of his youth. I know people are concerned about his DH profile, but I'll take the youth over that and the raw hitting and just assume that he'll be someone putting up 800 OPS, 850 OPS long into his 30s as long as he stays healthy. For the most part, though, I don't care about long-term contracts because what you're saying is that, if we have this guy on a long-term contract, well, then in the future when he's not producing, we won't have money to sign the next guy to a long-term contract. And then you're just playing the game again. At some point, you have to have the players for the present and not worry about whether a contract's going to be bad because they're all going to be bad. And if you're saving money for another contract, guess what? That's going to be bad at some point too. You just have to identify, hey, we've got the pitching right now. We need some sort of cohesion in the lineup and on the roster and play for the present right now. And as of right now, the Giants have three players they're happy to have, even with Adames struggling.
Awesome. We are definitely happy to have you, Grant, joining us here on the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. Really appreciate it, Grant. Have a great rest of your day. And, thanks for joining us today.
You got it. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. That was Grant Brisbee, covers the Giants for The Athletic. Joining us here on the River Islands guest line. Is it time for you to discover the islands? River Islands in Lathrop. A lot to get into there. We'll react a little bit about what Grant said on the other side, but also, again, as we teased a little earlier, the expectations, have they ratcheted up for the Giants this season, or do you feel like this season the Giants have already accomplished enough to call it a success? Love to get your thoughts on that, Dan. Love to go to the lines, and we'll get those calls in as well. So 888-957-9570 is the number. Have the expectations ratcheted up for the Giants? Plus, who is not in the starting lineup today? You're going to want to hear that on the other side. Brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
Yastrzemski. And this is knocked down. And now it's going to be a tough play, and it can't be made.
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap on 95.7 The Game.
We are back here on the wrap. Great job, Zach, holding it down behind the glass, man. He's getting better with every week here at 95.7 The Game. We got a caller on the line. We also have a lineup. Mitch is in New Jersey. I'm going to go to Mitch in a minute. Not right now. Not right now, Zach. Don't put him on just yet. Mitch, hang in there. We're going to get to you in just a minute. But we do have a lineup. I'm going to pay off this tease because someone is not in the lineup today. Well, obviously, someone is not in the lineup today. You can only have 9 guys in a lineup, and there's 13 position players. But your leadoff hitter is going to be Mike Yastrzemski. He'll be in right. Rafael Devers bumped up to the 2 spot. So Bob Melvin trying to get him some more at-bats. He'll be hitting second as your DH. Elliot Ramos hitting third and left. William Adames getting the cleanup spot today at short. Big Dom Smith, he will be batting
at
fifth
short?
at first base. Yeah, Dom's at short.
Oh, I thought you said.
Did I say something else?
No. I missed. Go ahead.
Okay. Dom Smith at first, batting fifth. Batting sixth at third base, Casey Schmidt. Daniel Johnson will be in center field today, not Jung-Hoo Lee, who, again, has been going through it at the plate a lot. So my guess is Jung-Hoo just getting a nice day off here to kind of reset his mind a little bit, take the pressure off, stop pressing as much. Tyler Fitzgerald is back in the lineup. So for all the Giants fans out there wringing their hands over Christian Koss, we're going to go back to wringing your hands about Tyler Fitzgerald today. So I like Fitz a lot. I think he's a great guy. I root for him a lot. I caught a foul ball from him last year. And so I very much root for him, and I hope that he is able to find the success that he had last year. That would be great if that could start today. He'll be batting eighth at second. And then Andrew Kisner will be in the squat at catcher and batting ninth. Landon Roop will be on the mound, 4-5, 3.99 ERA, 63 strikeouts on the season. So that's your lineup. Yaz, Devers, Ramos, Adames, Smith, Schmidt, Johnson, Fitz, Kisner, Roop. That is your lineup today. But coming up next, though, without further ado, is one Mitch in New Jersey. Mitch, do you need to see Rafael Devers be the leader on this team? What are the expectations of this Giants team? Or do you have a trade option that you want the Giants to pursue? I'm throwing 3 questions at you. Pick whichever one you want to respond.
Well, first, I'd like to, how you guys doing? Thanks for my call.
Of course.
I think I want to see Devers do well at first, despite the Boston Red Sox. Also, train for Josh Naylor from Arizona. He can also play left field. He's lost like 15 pounds. He's got 10 stolen bases, so he moves at 5'11", 235. You need more pop in his lineup. You got to like what they're doing. We're in second place comfortably, and it's going to be a bit of a dogfight, I think. I'm hoping.
I don't hate that.
Thanks for taking my call.
I don't hate that idea, Mitch. In-division trades are a little bit difficult. Mitch, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, yeah, no. So I'm assuming if you're wanting the Giants to still make more trades for a bat, are you in the position of the Giants, like this is they have to make the playoffs this year, or do you feel like just with the addition of Devers, is that enough for you to be like, you know what, this team's future is looking pretty good. I'm good with where they're at right now.
I think to ensure maybe chase the first place with Dodgers, you never know. And actually, he's not that strong. Definitely not the Central, and Braves are not doing well. Washington was looking good for a while, and they've hit a tailspin. Mm-hmm. So I think 2 of the wild cards definitely come from the National League West.
2, yeah, I agree with you, Mitch. Thanks for calling in there. That is Mitch in New Jersey, and I kind of go for first place. I mean, hey, why not? I mean, the Giants are still 4.5 back, and as you alluded to earlier in the show, Dan, the Dodgers looks like they are starting to catch fire here. But you look at the wild card standings, Giants currently hold the second wild card spot, 3 games behind the Mets, who the Mets, wow, they are in New York mess mode right now. They have lost 7 straight right now. They are playing Philly this weekend right now. Philly's currently atop the NL East right now. So it's the Mets, the Giants, and then right behind them is the Brewers and Cardinals. They're a game behind the Giants. And then a half a game behind the Brewers and Cardinals is the San Diego Padres. The NL playoff picture gets a little bit murkier after that. Cincinnati Reds, they're 2 games out. I don't see them as a major threat. Arizona Diamondbacks, again, with Josh Naylor, their season has just gone in no way, shape, or form as expected. The offense has not really kind of picked up where it left off last year. The bullpen has been a mess. And then they lost Corbin Burns, their big offseason pitching acquisition. And so that's your National League playoff pitcher, because after that, you look at the Braves and the Nationals, who are just so far out of the picture now that you basically got, 7 teams right now fighting for a wild card spot with, again, Padres, Reds, Diamondbacks all being within 2.5 games of one of those wild card spots. So, yeah, simply put, Dan, is the pressure higher now to make the playoffs for the Giants this year than it was a week ago?
Oh, certainly. Without a doubt. You've got to make the playoffs now that you've got Devers. And I'm with you. There's no evaluating. There's no, we'll run it back next year. You live for today, because there's no guarantees that, you're going to get this sort of pitching next year. And so you capitalize on listen, Logan Webb is having a Cy Young type of season. And this bullpen being what it is, you have no idea that your bullpen's going to be able to replicate this next year. And so you go all in and getting a guy like Devers and maybe somebody else so that you can hit and take advantage of what it is that you're starting pitching and your bullpen's been able to do up to this point so that you can get back into the postseason. And baseball, unlike that of the other 2 major sports, the NBA and the NFL, if you get in, you got a chance. See Arizona. See, it happens. Washington Nationals. There's a chance you can win the World Series. Just get your ticket punched. And it's all about this year, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, I agree. And Jim Bowden I believe he's with The Athletic now. He's been with MLB Network. He's been with ESPN. He's been all over, former general manager. He joined Steiny and Guru earlier this week. This was on, I believe, Tuesday as well. And he flat said the expectation is October baseball.
The expectations, without a doubt, to me, are they're going to have to play in October baseball. And I have a lot of confidence that this group is going to play in October baseball. I love the way this team has been built. I love the energy. I love the blend of youth and veterans. Most importantly, I love the pitching staff, and that's going to play. And you've got a president of baseball ops in Buster Posey that really understands how to get hitters out, and his expertise and quiet leadership and light whispers to Pat Bailey and the other catchers are difference makers for the Giants. So I don't look at it as pressure. I look at it as let's enjoy this ride, because this ride is going to take us into October, baby.
There you go. This ride will take us into October. Of course, that was before the last couple games of runners in scoring position and aptitude. But, Dan, again, 2010, 2012, 2014, those teams would go through long stretches, 3-4 weeks at a time, when no one could get that big hit. And at the end of the day, those seasons still ended pretty dang good for the Giants. It's 162 games, Dan. There's lots of ebbs and flows. The Giants are in an offensive ebb. But we know that, as we saw again, I always come back to that Elliot Ramos double against the Padres a couple weeks ago that kicked off that 7-game win streak. When he got that hit, you felt a massive shift in this team's energy. You could feel it through the TV. I wasn't at the game. I was watching on TV. You could feel that energy. When I got to the ballpark later that weekend, when they played the Braves, it felt like a completely different team that was taking the field. Now, granted, that team has since faded back away, but that team is in there. We know how good these guys are. We know that when Matt Chapman gets back, how that's going to change things. We know that Willie Adames gets hot a lot in the second half. Lot is riding on that coming to fruition in the second half. We know how good Rafael Devers can be. We've seen how many balls he's hit off the green monster in Boston. And a ball that's off the monster in Boston is halfway up the bleachers here at Oracle Park. The potential we know is there. It's just a matter of how much trust and faith you have in this Giants team to seize that potential that you know they can and run with it all the way to October.
Well, you're going to have to explain that to me. How is a ball off the wall at the Monster halfway up the bleachers in San Francisco?
Well, if it's off the Monster, I mean, the Monster is like, 30 feet high or something like that. So if it's bouncing off the top of the wall.
Of top of the wall? Okay.
Yeah. So I guess there is a lot of wall, I guess. You're right. A ball off the top of the green Monster, because you can't sit on the green Monster. They're seating like 3/4 of the way up, but there's a lot of balls he's hit that just kind of bounced off the Monster right under where people sit. You know, if you're hitting it that high up the wall, more than likely that ball is going to be gone. Or the same thing if you have a ball off the number 3 archway of the Willie Mays wall at Oracle is probably a home run in like Dodger Stadium or something where they have that comically low right field wall out there.
Mickey Mouse ballpark.
Yeah, it is. It's a terrible ballpark and an even worse parking lot. So it's all about how much you believe in these hitters turning it around and figuring it out, and at the same time hoping that the pitching can actually keep picking things up. This team at the end of the day, this team does not feel like it's living up to the potential that we know it can have, which is crazy to say when they're 8 games above 500 and you very much within a playoff spot. But Dan, ever since that 12-4 start to the season, this is a 30-30 team. They're 42-34 now. Ever since that 12-4 start, they're a 500 ball club, which you could look at that as, wow, they've really kind of regressed since that hot start to the season. Or you can look at it as they're keeping their heads above water as best they can right now until they can be a whole team.
They just have to hit. As ridiculous as that sounds and oversimplified.
You're not wrong.
Because at some point, as good as the starting pitching has been, as good as the bullpen has been, there's going to be a regression to the means. And I think you're beginning to see it with Birdsong last night.
Robbie Ray a little bit.
Yeah, Robbie Ray. And the wheels come off a little bit. Look, at that series leading up to the Red Sox against the Guardians, in which they scored a total of 6 runs, 2 runs every single game. Can you imagine essentially telling your pitching staff, hey, listen, you need to keep the opposing team to 1 run or less. Can you do that? We can win you a game.
I mean, that's basically Logan Webb's life. I mean, Logan Webb got that. He gave up that 1 run on Thursday, and you're thinking, well, you screwed this up, Logan. You know the rules. You're not allowed to give up runs. And, of course, Wilmer Flores picks him up in the 7th inning there with that pinch hit double to score 2. But, yeah, that is life as a Giants pitcher.
I think at some point you're going to have to give a pitcher a day off. At some point, Robbie Ray just won't have it. Or at some point, as we saw with Birdsong or whomever, even Logan Webb. And you're going to have to outslug somebody, as teams do, and good teams do. Teams actually do score double digits, believe it or not, as ridiculous as
I've heard rumors about that, but I didn't believe it to be true.
And you could win a game 9-8 or outslug another baseball team. And so, again, the onus goes back on the offense. And this conversation begins and ends with this team at some point. And hopefully Willie or Rafi Devers is going to be the guy to get this thing going and get this train back on track, but they're going to have to hit.
I mean, I agree with you. Yes, Rafi Devers needs to get it going, obviously, to get the lineup going. Willie Adames needs to eventually show up. He has a 5-game on base streak right now, which really does not sound like a lot, but for him it does. You're really trying to grasp here for positives with Adames, but again, he did get on base twice last night, scored a couple runs, which that is a productive night that he had last night. So if he could just, keep doing that every single game for the rest of the season, that would be...
His defense is better.
The defense is getting better. I maintain that the defense is a little bit better than the errors indicate. Again, his defense isn't great. He's never going to win a Gold Glove with the Giants, if we're comparing him to what we expect at shortstop defensively with what we saw from Brandon Crawford, what we once saw from Omar Vizquel, what even Richard Rillia was an accomplished defensive shortstop. Heck, most Giants fans don't remember this guy, Brian Bocock, who was the opening day shortstop in 2009. Even he was a decent enough, I don't know if that's a drop, but even he was a decent enough shortstop there. So Giants fans are used to seeing plus defense at the 6 hole. And Tyler Fitzgerald, moments last year, but there's a reason why he's at second base. The guy they need to get going back, though, I think it might be Matt Chapman. And the reason is we asked Bob pregame, what this lineup's going to look like when there'd be more structure to it. And he did bring up Chapman. Here's what he had to say, as I just had it here on my board, and then I lost it because everything is so disorganized here. Here it is.
There's a left-right complement to it all. I'm not 100% sure he's going to be in the 3-hole all the time. Once Chapman gets back, it feels like we'll get a little bit deeper and a little bit more balanced. Until then, we're trying to play a hot hand earlier in the lineup, like Yaz leading off now, and Jung-Hoo's a little bit down. So early on, we were a little bit more structured in how the lineup went, and then had to make some changes, obviously. I still think there's some potentially a more of a balanced lineup and more of a set lineup once Chap gets back.
So Bob was asked that before the game yesterday. The question was basically how Devers is fitting into the lineup right now, and that's where the left component came in. And Bob's talking about that, and I kind of expected him to. When he's talking about that, I'm just thinking, like, really, it has to be all incumbent on Matt Chapman's presence in the lineup for this lineup to kind of be structured in a more consistent manner. Because when you look at this team, Jung-Hoo Lee is looks like a prototypical leadoff guy. He's a contact-heavy guy. He has speed. Willie Adames, I asked Bob Melvin after the Adames' intro presser, where do you see him in the lineup? And he said, well, I think the number on the back of his jersey is probably a good indication, that number being the number 2. You got a great 3-hole hitter in Rafi Devers. Elliot Ramos can handle that too, if you want to put Devers in the 4 spot. And then you got Chapman and Flores, who can potentially hit behind him. But I don't agree with the notion that you need to have Chapman here right now to keep these guys in the lineup spots that they're currently hitting it. Now, it's Bob's decision. He writes the lineup. He knows more about this game than I do. So I do trust Bob's baseball intellect in this overall situation. But when it comes to the lineup, I would like to see this lineup be more structured right now and then wait for Chapman to come back rather than move guys around the lineup based off who's hitting what and just kind of hodgepodge it together until Chapman gets back, because that's the kind of disorganized life, so to speak, that the Giants were living under the Farhan regime, where every lineup was so matchup based. You didn't know, guys came to the ballpark not knowing where in the lineup they were going to hit on any particular day.
Yeah, I don't know if Melvin is doing it necessarily on the metrics or algorithms and the whatever it is that the computer's spitting out, like Farhan and Kaplan were so reliant on in terms of percentages. I think right now for Melvin, they've reached this point of desperation that they're just doing anything so that they can move guys up and down the lineup to get them going. And you're seeing that with Jung-Hoo Lee, who's not in the lineup today, who goes from leadoff spot now down to number 7. And so even Devers now is up at the number 2 spot. You're just trying to get this thing on. You're just trying to make contact. I don't know if it's necessarily about structure or unstructured. You need some offense. You mentioned something interesting about Willie Adames and his defense. Just to go down the road, and I'm so on board with what Grant was saying earlier that, listen, these long-term contracts, they always turn out poorly. I think I mentioned this. The last 2 or 3 or maybe 4 years of a deal,
you're feeling it.
Typically, you're going to eat it. Look at Aaron Judge. I guarantee you, as amazing as he has been, get back to me for a guy who's 6'7" in his late 30s and see how that contract works out with the New
big
York
body
Yankees.
to maintain.
Yeah. So, but for the Yankees, it makes sense if they can get a World Series one of these years, and it justifies itself. With the Giants, when you just think about going down the road, Willie Adames is not necessarily, as you mentioned, a good athlete at shortstop. And so ideally, he's somebody that you would, in his latter years, move into the DH spot. But then you have another guy who's a long-term player in Rafael Devers, who, when you look at his body type, that is not somebody that you would consider as a position player long-term. He seems to be the natural DH. So I'm wondering, when we think about these contracts for Giant players that are locked up long-term, where do these guys fit in as far as their contribution on a daily basis?
Well, I do believe Devers at DH for the entire 8 years makes sense. I think the only reason why they want him to play first base is because that allows Wilmer Flores to stay in the lineup more often, and you have to do that because Wilmer has probably been the most dependable Giant this year, which this isn't I'm not trying to take a shot at Wilmer here, but if Wilmer is your most dependable hitter right now, that's not a good thing. But again, Wilmer, he's been coming through all year long because he has one of the best approaches at the plate, if not the best approach at the plate on this team. So they want to get him in the lineup as often as possible, and he's not a very good defensive first baseman either, and Bob admitted that there's going to be some ugly games defensively at first base going forward this season, whether, he mentioned about Rafi Devers playing first, but Wilmer Flores will be an adventure at first base in its own right as well. But yeah, long term, because Flores isn't going to be here forever, Devers is your guy at DH, and that gives me hope that his deal will age the best because being a DH can extend your career for a very long time. Adames, I think if he is the shortstop for 4 of the 7 years of this deal, I would be amazed. I think he's going to be at second base before he hits the halfway point of this contract. And then Chapman, yeah, he'll be at the hot corner for the entirety of his career. So I think whatever he'll look like defensively there, you can still be a good defensive third baseman even later into your 30s. Scott Rowland, who recently was inducted into the Hall of Fame, he was a plus defender all the way up to the end. So if you have the defensive know-how, you can do it. Even Brandon Crawford at the end, he was still a plus defender. He wasn't the Gold Glove defender he was in the mid-2010s, but he was still a better-than-average shortstop. And I think Matt Chapman will still be a better-than-average third baseman when his contract comes to an end eventually as well. So, we asked, which of those deals is going to age the worst based off what I just said there. It feels like it could be Willy Adames, but that's only because, again, I think it's just Devers and Chapman are set up to age the least poorly in comparison to what we're going to see from Adames. So, and with that, Dan, we've reached the end of the show. We did it. We did another fun one. This was a lot of fun day. A lot of great conversation today. Thank you to everybody who called in. Big shout out to Risotto and Zach Green behind the glass for holding things down. Thank you to our guest, Grant Brisbee, for joining us today. If you missed that interview, you can go back, catch it on YouTube or on the free Odyssey app. Thank you to the Giants for giving us so much content today. And thank you to you, Dan. Really appreciate you coming in and doing these shows with me, flying across the country and talking baseball with me.
I'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week as well. And to all those listening, we will see you on the next one.